Chapter 2:16. Everyone looked at each other, and the younger generation fell silent. Hua Mingguang looked at his father helplessly. Dad, what are you talking about? Who would dare to do anything to her? Didn't you see Jin Yao protecting her? That's what he should do. Shouldn't a man protect his wife? If he can't even protect his wife, what can he do? After saying this, old Master Hua got up and prepared to go upstairs to rest. Before leaving, he glanced at Lu Tongjia. Tongjia, I know you want Ruoli to marry Jin Yao. But now they're married. You should stop thinking about it. You're too stubborn about some things, so I won't try to persuade you. But Jin Yao is your son, after all. You're not at the point where you can't get along with him. It was the first time Lu Tongjia had been humiliated by old Master Hua like this. Hua Mingguang looked at his wife's face and wanted to say something, but stopped. The other two families had different expressions, but without exception, they all looked like they were watching a good show. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao didn't know any of this. Rome City was in the north, and it was already very cold. The coldness here was different from the coldness in the south. As soon as Su Qingsang walked out of the door, she staggered because of the cold wind. Hua Jinyao helped her up with a smile on his face. What's wrong? Are you so scared that your legs are weak? Who's scared? Su Qingsang steadied herself and looked at her feet. See? There are steps. I didn't notice. Yes. Hua Jinyao reached out to hold her hand. I thought that you'd just calmed down and your legs went soft after you calmed down. You're the one who's weak. She was someone who dared to dissect a corpse. How could something like this make her legs weak? Hua Jinyao put his arm around her shoulder and said, Okay, my wife is beautiful and bold. I'm so lucky to marry you. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore. Stop fooling around. Come on, I'll take you to play. Where do you want to go? Anywhere. I'm not familiar with this place. Rome City used to be quite prosperous. There's an ancient city here, not far from here. I'll take you there. What do you think? You decide. Since it was his territory, they would naturally listen to him. Hua Jinyao took her to the car, and they went to the famous ancient city of Rome City. The ancient city was built in the Ming Dynasty. It had been preserved very well. Su Qingsang liked this kind of place. He felt that it was a little interesting. It wasn't small, but the two of them walked around for an entire afternoon. After they came out, Hua Jinyao said he would take her to dinner. Su Qingsang said that she wanted to eat the local specialties of Rome City. In fact, the food in Su Qingsang City was quite spicy, but the people here didn't eat spicy food. But it was good to eat it occasionally. After dinner, it got dark. Su Qingsang thought that Hua Jinyao would take her home, but she didn't expect him to say that he had already made arrangements. She followed him, and the two of them strolled around the night market. Although it wasn't as lively as the south, it still had a unique flavor. Seeing that it was almost 9 o'clock, Su Qingsang thought that they would be going home soon. However, Hua Jinyao brought her here again. He looked up at the signboard. It should be a clubhouse. Hua Jinyao led her into the door, upstairs, and into the elevator. Someone led the way in front. Hua Jinyao squeezed her hand and said, A few of my childhood friends knew that I was back and insisted on welcoming me. We had no choice but to go and entertain them. Chapter 2:17. Hua Jinyao seemed to know what she was worried about and patted her shoulder. Yup, just a few childhood friends. They usually have a good relationship with me. They could be considered to have grown up together. If you really come to Rome City in the future, you'll have to ask these boys to help you with some things. How can you say that about me? Hearing that, Su Qingsang knew that they had a good relationship, so she relaxed a lot. You're being too polite. You'll know when you see him. Hua Jinyao thought about that group of people and added, These people know that I'm married. They made a scene a few times and asked me to bring you out. She didn't follow Hua Jinyao to Rong City several times before. Naturally, he couldn't bring her to meet anyone. Su Qingsang thought about the attitude of the Hua family and made all kinds of preparations. As they spoke, the two of them arrived at the entrance of the VIP room. Pushing open the door, they saw a row of U-shaped sofas in the spacious room. There were already a few people sitting inside. Seeing Hua Jinyao enter the door, someone whistled. Su Qingsang recognized one of the men immediately. Wasn't that person the mayor of Lin City? She had seen it on the local news. At that time, he felt that the other party was really young. He didn't expect to see them in Rong City. A man who looked to be in his late 20s with a crew cut stood up. He was dressed in a military uniform and looked very proper. He threw a punch at Hua Jinyao. "Brat, you're finally willing to come out of your nest?" The other one was more delicate and looked about the same age as the first one. The man in the gray shirt stood up as well. "I don't think he's willing to come out. He's here to extort us." "Yes. I think so too." Finally, the person sitting in the private room said, "So, how about 3 drinks as punishment?" Punishment. He had to be punished. Junsheng was so busy, but he still had time to fly back to meet with us. "Just you, kid." "What?" "Now that you're married, you have a lot of face. Isn't it hard to see you?" "That's enough." Hua Jinyao punched the guy with the flat top and said, "Stop it. When I'm not at home, you guys seem to be having more fun." The group laughed. All eyes fell on Su Qingsang, who was standing next to Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao turned to look at Su Qingsang. "Come on, let me introduce you." He pointed at the man in the military uniform who was the most talkative. "This is Cheng Xianyun." The gray shirt was Cheng Wanxianyang. The last one to speak was Tang Mohan. It was Su Changlong who had been silent. Li Junsheng didn't need to be introduced. Su Qingsang already knew him. After introducing everyone, Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulder and brought her to the front. "This is my wife, Su Qingsang." "Hello, sister-in-law." Hua Jinyao smiled and said, "I'm older than all of them. It's only right for me to call you sister-in-law." "Nice to meet you," Su Qingsang greeted them graciously. Although Cheng Xianyun was wearing a military uniform, he was the most lively one. He looked Su Qingsang up and down, then turned to Hua Jinyao. "Little sister-in-law is quite pretty, no wonder you don't, Xianyun," Li Junsheng called him from behind. Cheng Xianyun rubbed his nose. No wonder he had been hiding and did not bring little sister-in-law out. Hua Jinyao gave him a warning look, and Cheng Xianyun made a zipping gesture with his mouth. Chapter 218. The doubt disappeared after Hua Jinyao sat down with her. The group of people chatted casually. Su Qingsang found that except for Su Changlong, who didn't speak much, the others were very friendly. Li Junsheng also surprised her a little. This kind of person who could only be seen on TV was actually Hua Jinyao's childhood friend? Hua Jinyao sat next to Li Junsheng. Li Junsheng raised his wine glass to Su Qingsang. "Sister-in-law, this is the first time we've met. Give me one. Don't mess around. She can't drink." Hua Jinyao didn't want Su Qingsang to go back drunk. "Are you protecting her?" Li Junsheng didn't force her, but the teasing in his eyes was very obvious. Hua Jinyao smiled. "Yes, I'll protect my people. Do you have a problem with that?" "No." "How can I have a problem with that?" "Jinyao, that's not right. How can you not drink when you're here?" Cheng Xianyun jumped out again. He picked up the wine glass and was about to toast Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang smiled and refused. "I really can't drink." "If you can't drink, then sing." Cheng Xianyun pulled Su Qingsang up as he spoke and looked at Hua Jinyao. "Brother Hua, I'll borrow sister-in-law for a while. You can do whatever you want." "You brat." Hua Jinyao glared at him and turned to look at Su Qingsang. Ignore him. If you don't want to, just sit here. I'll see who dares. Wan Xianyang, Qing Xianyun, and Tang Mohan all said something. Su Qingsang blushed and was a little embarrassed. Then let's sing one. Look, sister-in-law has agreed. Come, what do you want to sing? I'll order a song for you. I'll do it myself. Su Qingsang stood up and walked to the console to order a song. The group of people didn't pay attention to this side. Li Junsheng approached Hua Jinyao and lowered his voice. Last time, your company didn't fight for the land in the east of the city. The plan has changed. Oh. Hua Jinyao calmly picked up the glass in front of him. What has changed? Originally, it was to build villas there. Now there are documents saying that it is to build nursing homes and orphanages. I didn't want the land in the east of the city. Hua Jinyao raised his glass and gently clinked it with him. I've always wanted the land in the south of the city. Li Junsheng smiled and clinked glasses with him. You're still so cunning, kid. I'll take that as a compliment. Hua Jinyao smiled brightly. I'm determined to win the auction next month. Don't worry. If there are no accidents, it should be yours. Li Junsheng drank half of the cup and suddenly became serious. But you guys have earned the money, and you have to do things. Although you won't fight for that piece of land, your company still needs to put in some effort for the nursing home and orphanage. Since you, Mayor Li, have spoken, I will naturally follow your orders. If my project does well, won't you be proud as well? You. Li Junsheng smiled. Hua Jinyao knew that he had always been ambitious. The two of them clinked their glasses. Nothing needed to be said. When Su Qingsang sat down next to Hua Jinyao, she found that he seemed to be in a better mood. She looked at him suspiciously, not understanding what had happened in such a short time. Hua Jinyao couldn't explain it to her, so he just handed her a glass of juice. Su Qingsang had just taken it when the door of the private room was opened. There were 3 women standing at the door. The leader had a very delicate face, and at the moment, her face was full of displeasure. Chapter 219. The second one who came in was a pretty girl. She put one hand on the shoulder of the woman in front of her and saw Hua Jinyao at first glance. Brother Jinyao is back. You guys didn't even tell us. Instead, you came here to play. It's really too much. Exactly. The woman in the lead snorted and pulled the last woman in. Brother Jinyao, you're so heartless. You didn't invite your sisters to play with you when you came back. Hua Jinyao didn't speak. Su Qingsang blinked and looked at those people. The first one who came in was quite beautiful. She was Li Junsheng's sister, Li Wanyu. Behind her was Tang Mohan's sister, Tang Monlu. The last one to come in was Su Ruoli, Su Changlong's sister. Su Qingsang's eyes subconsciously fell on Su Ruoli. Li Wanyu was beautiful, Tang Monlu was beautiful, but Su Ruoli was out of this world. Her facial features were not gorgeous, but she had a kind of beauty, like an orchid in an empty valley. Inexplicably, Su Qingsang felt a vague sense of threat. She subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao picked up the grapes on the coffee table and put them to her mouth. Here, have a grape. Su Qingsang subconsciously opened her mouth, but found that the 3 women were looking at her. Brother Jinyao. Li Wanyu went forward and sat next to Li Junsheng. Who is this? My wife. Su Qingsang. Hua Jinyao told Su Qingsang the names of the rest of the people. Hello. Su Qingsang nodded slightly as a greeting. Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu looked at each other, and Tang Monlu sat next to Hua Jinyao. Brother Jinyao, you got married in a low-key way. Didn't the whole Rome city hear about it? Tang Monlu said half-jokingly. Exactly, Brother Jinyao. You didn't find a random woman to fool us because you wanted to be forced to marry by Aunt Hua, did you? Wanyu. Li Junsheng glared at his sister with a bit of coldness in his eyes. Don't talk nonsense. Except for Li Junsheng, the other men looked at each other and didn't say anything. Even Qing Xianyun, who had always been lively, sat motionless. How is this nonsense? Li Wanyu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Su Ruoli, who had come in but had not yet sat down. Everyone knows that Auntie Hua's favorite person is Li Wanyu. Li Junsheng's expression was already quite ugly. If you continue to talk nonsense, you can leave. Brother, what are you doing? Am I your little sister? Li Junsheng was unmoved. Today is a gathering for us men. You girls go home first. I don't want to. Li Wanyu didn't want to. If it's a gathering for men, then why is she here? She directly pointed at Su Qingsang, and Su Qingsang was inexplicably implicated. How could she be the same as you? She's Jinyao's wife. Li Junsheng knew what his sister was thinking. Judging from his protective attitude toward Su Qingsang, she could tell how important Su Qingsang was to him. As long as they weren't stupid, they wouldn't challenge Hua Jinyao's bottom line. But I'm still your sister. Li Wanyu glared at him. How can you be someone's brother like this? You don't protect me, but only outsiders. When she said this, she glared at Su Qingsang with obvious provocation in her eyes. Su Qingsang was implicated again. She subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. He picked up the fruit on the table and fed her another bite. Eat the fruit. Chapter 220. If Su Qingsang still couldn't tell that something was wrong, she would be really stupid. Once again, she confirmed that a woman's intuition was indeed very accurate. She just felt that Su Ruoli was not ordinary. Su Ruoli had already walked to her brother Su Changlong and sat down. She didn't seem to hear what Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu said. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao again. Hua Jinyao acted as if he didn't see those women. He calmly fed her 2 more pieces of fruit. Seeing that she was looking at him, he took out a tissue and wiped his hands. Tired? If you are tired, we can go back first. Can I? Can I go first? Su Qingsang wasn't tired. She just didn't like Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu's attitude. However, she was more curious about the relationship between Su Ruoli and Hua Jinyao. Why did everyone else look at them as if they were having an affair? Brother Jinyao, what do you mean? Li Wanyu bit her lip. Her beautiful face was a bit aggrieved. We are here, and you want to leave? Yes, Brother Jinyao. What's wrong? You don't like us now that you are married? Tang Monlu also said. She was obviously dissatisfied with Hua Jinyao's behavior. Wanyu. Monlu. Li Junsheng and Tang Mohan obviously didn't like their sister being so immature. The 2 of them felt quite aggrieved and looked at Su Ruoli together. Su Ruoli felt their gazes and smiled faintly. Jinyao just came back today. I think he is tired. Anyway, he is back. There is still a long way to go. Don't force him to stay. Sister Ruoli. Li Wanyu looked at Su Ruoli. Su Ruoli didn't say that just now. Su Changlong was also looking at his sister. In fact, they were twins. Su Ruoli was only born 10 minutes earlier than him. In his heart, he knew about the engagement between the Su family and the Hua family. That was why he hadn't said anything since just now. He couldn't particularly accept that a woman from nowhere had become Hua Jinyao's wife and taken away his sister's position. All right. Don't we often go out to play? We can't stop playing when Jinyao is gone, right? Su Ruoli spoke again. The others didn't speak and only looked at Hua Jinyao. The atmosphere was a little strange. Su Qingsang pulled Hua Jinyao's hand and said, I'm not too tired. We can leave later. He had been staying in Lin City these days and hadn't come back. It was rare for him to come back. If he left just like that, it wouldn't be good. Her dislike of society did not mean that she was ignorant of the ways of the world. Then let's play a little longer. Hua Jinyao looked like he would do anything for Su Qingsang. Li Wanyu felt her teeth ache, and Tang Monlu also felt uncomfortable. They went to see Su Ruoli together. Su Ruoli acted as if nothing had happened. She picked up a glass and poured herself a glass of wine. Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang were sitting together, and Li Junsheng was sitting next to Hua Jinyao. Later, Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu sat beside Li Junsheng. On the other side of Hua Jinyao was Tang Monlu. Tang Monlu kept looking at Su Ruoli. After pouring the wine, she stood up and walked to Hua Jinyao. Tang Monlu took the opportunity to stand up and give her seat to Su Ruoli. Sister Ruoli, sit here. Su Ruoli sat down next to Hua Jinyao and raised the glass in her hand to Hua Jinyao. Jinyao. You didn't inform us of your marriage, and I haven't congratulated you. I'm giving you a belated blessing. Hua Jinyao glanced at her and picked up the glass. Chapter 221. Su Ruoli looked at Su Qingsang. Her eyes were light and friendly. Su Qingsang looked at the glass in front of her and then at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao smiled at her and then looked at Su Ruoli. His voice was a little colder. You called her the wrong way. Su Ruoli was stunned. Hua Jinyao added, you shouldn't call her sister-in-law. Su Qingsang didn't understand, but Su Ruoli's face turned pale. She held the glass and didn't react for nearly half a minute. The other people in the private room also looked over, especially Su Changlong. Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao, what are you talking about? That's the truth. Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. He looked at Su Ruoli. He understood the meaning of that look, and so did Su Ruoli. She is younger than you. You called her name. Su Ruoli's fingertips were pale. She looked down and didn't speak. No one knew what she was thinking. Su Qingsang felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. But she couldn't tell what was strange. She thought about it and wanted to pick up the glass in front of her. Hua Jinyao held her hand and gave her another glass of juice. Drink this. He was the only one who had seen her drunk. The protectiveness in his eyes was so obvious. Su Ruoli wasn't blind. Her face also turned a little pale. Jinyao, you, Su Changlong didn't look good either. Seeing his sister being looked down upon like this, he moved his legs and wanted to stand up. Wan Xianying held him down. He glanced at him and shook his head at him silently. Su Changlong sat back down. Tang Mohan didn't move. Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu didn't dare to speak. It doesn't matter what you drink. What matters is my thought. Su Ruoli barely regained her senses. She picked up the glass and gestured to Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang picked up the juice and nodded to Ji Dongli. Su Ruoli and Hua Jinyao clinked glasses. He gently touched the glass and quickly withdrew his hand. He casually took a sip and put it down. His attitude made Su Ruoli's face turn even paler. Su Qingsang held the juice glass in her hand and felt a little strange. Come. What are you standing there for? Qing Xianyun looked at the atmosphere in the room and stood up first. Come out to play. Let's have a good time. Sister-in-law, come on, let's sing. You just said you don't want to drink, but you still have to sing this song. Su Qingsang put down her glass and smiled shyly. I'm not good at singing. Sorry for that. Sister-in-law, what are you saying? It's not like I want to be a singer. Qing Xianyun smiled and handed the microphone to Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang glanced at the screen. The number of times she came out to play could be counted on one hand. The songs he could sing were also very few. However, when he was in school, one of his roommates especially liked Fei Wong. It was played every day, so she only knew a few songs. I haven't properly felt the gentleness of the snowflakes dancing. Su Qingsang's voice was not clear. It was just that her voice was a little low. Singing such a song was surprisingly pleasant. Hua Jinyao looked at her and felt that he had never seen Su Qingsang like this. He couldn't help but reach out to hold her hand. Su Qingsang was just about to sing, sometimes, I'd rather not let go. Feeling the warmth of his hand, she turned her face and smiled at him. Hua Jinyao squeezed her palm and praised her for singing with his eyes. Chapter 222. The two of them stared at each other unscrupulously. As long as the other people in the room had eyes, they could see that the two of them were deeply in love. Su Qingsang blushed and felt a little hot. However, there was a trace of joy and happiness in her heart. Su Ruoli's face became paler and paler like a piece of paper. She could fall down at any time. After the song, Hua Jinyao applauded. The other people in the room couldn't refuse. Su Ruoli sat still. Tang Monlu stood up and said, Sister Ruoli's voice is also very good. Sister Ruoli, you sing too. Sing, my heart will go on. While speaking, she gave Su Qingsang a provocative look, but found that Su Qingsang wasn't looking at her at all. She was just staring at Hua Jinyao. Su Ruoli bit her lip and gently shook her head. I won't sing, okay? What was the point of singing well? Hua Jinyao didn't appreciate it. Tang Monlu insisted on ordering 2 difficult songs for Su Ruoli. Then she took the initiative to put the microphone in Su Ruoli's hand. Su Ruoli's voice sounded soft and delicate, but it was really good when she sang. Su Qingsang couldn't help but look at her again. She found that she was singing, My Heart Will Go On, but she was looking at Hua Jinyao. She pursed her lips and gently touched Hua Jinyao. Then she looked at him with a bit of a teasing look in her eyes. She didn't know that Hua Jinyao was concentrating on peeling grapes for her. Come on. Eat more fruit. It's much drier here than in Lin City. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She opened her mouth to eat the grapes that Hua Jinyao handed to her. She was passively showing off her love. Everyone else in the room saw this and understood what was going on. After Su Ruoli finished, there was also applause in the room. But compared with Su Qingsang, the applause was a little different. Su Ruoli's expression didn't change, but Tang Monlu began to feel wronged for her. She wanted to stand up for her but was stopped by Tang Mohan. Brother. Tang Monlu was unhappy. Tang Mohan coldly stared at her. She immediately shrank her neck and didn't dare to speak. The people in the room grew up together and had a similar relationship. Tang Monlu regarded Hua Jinyao as her brother, so she wasn't unhappy. But she didn't expect that he would be with someone outside of their circle. In her opinion, Su Ruoli and Hua Jinyao were a better match. No matter what, they had grown up together. Not to mention, Sister Ruoli's family background was good and she was talented. Because of this strange atmosphere, the gathering seemed a little awkward. However, Hua Jinyao didn't care. In the eyes of others, he was serving Su Qingsang wholeheartedly. What she didn't know was that in the eyes of others, this scene was even more unsightly, and they disliked Su Qingsang even more. In the past, Hua Jinyao had been nice to Tang Monlu and Li Wanyu, but that was only for the sake of their families and their elder brothers. But looking at how he treated Su Qingsang, the difference was obvious. Everyone present had different thoughts, but it was a joyous and harmonious scene. After the party, Su Qingsang was really tired. By the time the car stopped in front of the Hua mansion, she had already fallen asleep. Hua Jinyao looked at her sleeping face and wanted to wake her up. But looking at her sleeping face, he didn't want to wake her up, so he went around to the other side and gently carried her inside. It was late at night in the mansion, and Su Qingsang was very light. She was really tired today. She didn't wake up, but found a relatively comfortable position in Hua Jinyao's arms and fell asleep again. Chapter 223. Hua Mingguang was the chairman of Tianyu Group. A few years ago, Old Master Hua forcefully gave the position of CEO to Hua Jinyao. Lu Tongjia was the daughter of the Lu family. Her family also had a business. Ever since she married Hua Mingguang, she had been in charge of several foundations and had been elected as the president of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. In fact, she was also very busy every day, and she was not much more relaxed than Hua Mingguang. At this time, she should have gone to bed. It was only when he heard the sound of a car that he stopped to take a look. She didn't expect to see such a scene. Her good son, who didn't have much of a good face in front of his own family, was carrying the woman she didn't approve of into the house. Looking at her son's careful and protective expression, she really didn't know that her son was a sentimental person. Lu Tongjia didn't know what to feel, but she didn't like it. "Mom," Hua Jinmiao greeted her when he saw her. He turned around and carried Su Qingsang upstairs. Su Qingsang moved a little when she heard the voice. Hua Jinmiao hugged her tightly and unconsciously lightened his footsteps. The look on Lu Tongjia's face grew darker and darker. Watching her son's figure disappear behind the stairs, her gaze became determined. Su Qingsang had a good sleep. Although she was going to a new place, Hua Jinmiao was by her side. She had gotten used to falling asleep in Hua Jinmiao's arms, so she didn't feel uncomfortable. She got up early in the morning and found that Hua Jinmiao was not in the room. She looked down from the window. He didn't notice it yesterday, but the backyard was even bigger than the front yard. She immediately noticed that old Master Hua was practicing boxing on the spacious lawn in the backyard. On the other side of the lawn was a swimming pool, and Hua Jinmiao was swimming in it. She knew he had the habit of exercising every morning, but this was the first time she had seen him swim. The temperature outside wasn't high. Wasn't he cold? She quickly changed her clothes and followed him downstairs. The old man was over 80 years old and was in good health. It was because she paid attention to maintaining her health. The old man liked to do Tai Chi. He pushed back and forth, and his moves looked quite standard. Turning around, old Master Hua found that Su Qingsang had also come down. He smiled at her and retracted his fist. "Qingsang, you're awake? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Su Qingsang smiled. It didn't feel good to sleep here for too long. She changed the topic. "Grandpa's boxing is very good. Do you want to learn?" "If you want to learn, I can teach you." "That's good." Su Qingsang stuck out her tongue, feeling a little embarrassed. "It's just that I don't have a stable mind. I'm afraid I can't hold on." There were a lot of things to do in the hospital, and she was only free for a few days. He was afraid that he would still be busy when he returned to Lin City. "I'm fine. When you have time, you should learn a few moves to strengthen your body." What old Master Hua said was true. He was really going to teach Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang glanced at Hua Jinmiao, who was still swimming happily in the water. She could only bite the bullet and learn. After learning a few moves, he became interested. His punches and kicks weren't as good as old Master Hua's, but it was still acceptable. Not bad, not bad. He had talent. "For the next few days, you will wake up early and practice with me." "Sure." Su Qingsang was a little sweaty after a round of punching, but she felt refreshed. "Let's go. Time for breakfast." Old Master Hua asked Su Qingsang to come in with him. Hua Jinmiao had also finished swimming and was coming out of the water. Although it was cold in Rong City these few days, the weather was good. The morning sun shone on Hua Jinmiao's body, and his strong figure was clearly visible. Su Qingsang couldn't help but take a few more glances. She turned around and found old Master Hua's teasing gaze. Chapter 224. Old Master Hua smiled and patted her hand. "You look at him every day. It seems that you are very satisfied with Jinmiao." "Grandpa." Su Qingsang blushed and felt extremely embarrassed. Old Master Hua stopped teasing her and led her into the house. Lu Tongjia had already gotten up. She glanced at Su Qingsang with an indifferent expression. "Good morning, Auntie." She was Hua Jinmiao's mother, but she didn't want her to call her Mom. Lu Tongjia didn't look at her. She walked past her and went straight to the dining room. Girl. Old Master Hua sighed. Don't take it to heart. Grandpa, don't worry. I won't. Su Qingsang didn't have much experience with old people, but she really liked Old Master Hua. Hua Jinyao came after taking a shower and changing his clothes. He still sat next to Su Qingsang. The others didn't usually live here, so only the few of them had breakfast. Hua Mingguang also got up early. He glanced at Hua Jinyao when he was about to go out after breakfast. Since you're back, you have to deal with business. Don't just care about love, Anne. He swallowed the unpleasant words when he met Old Master Hua's warning gaze. Hua Jinyao did have a lot of business to deal with today. Other than the one he had left behind, he was still in Lin City. He looked at Su Qingsang and felt a little conflicted. He was supposed to take her out to play. It's okay. Go to work. I'll stay with Grandpa. Su Qingsang was quite considerate. Hua Jinyao looked at her and felt that this woman was becoming more and more like him. Ignoring the fact that there were other people around, he kissed her on the cheek and said, "Okay. I'll go to work. You stay at home with Grandpa. I'll come back to eat with you tonight." "Okay." Su Qingsang nodded and Hua Jinyao went to work. After breakfast, Old Master Hua took Su Qingsang to his study. It was the first time Su Qingsang entered Old Master Hua's study. She looked straight ahead and entered the door, then stood on the side like a primary school student. "You don't have to be so nervous. Come here." "Thank you, Grandpa." Su Qingsang relaxed a little. Old Master Hua sat down behind the desk. Su Qingsang glanced at the room and saw a few paintings hanging on the wall. They seemed to be authentic works, but she didn't know much about them. Old Master Hua bent down and took out a box from the bottom drawer. He opened it and handed it to Su Qingsang. This was left behind by Jinyao's grandmother. He had promised that he would give it to the eldest granddaughter-in-law. Now that he's married, it's naturally yours. Su Qingsang glanced at the box. It was an antique jade bracelet that seemed to be of good quality. "Grandpa, this is too expensive. I can't take it." "Keep it. I've said it before, things are dead, but people are alive." Old Master Hua seemed to think of something and was a little sad. When his grandmother was alive, she loved him the most. At the mention of his wife, Old Master Hua paused. The look in his eyes became more and more reluctant. "You're married to Jinyao now. This is yours." "Grandpa." Su Qingsang looked at the box and didn't dare to take it with her hands. "I'm a doctor. I can't wear this." "It's okay. Keep it." Old Master Hua waved his hand. "Do you know how to play chess? Do you want to play a game with me?" "No." Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. At best, she only knew the rules. "It's okay. Let's go downstairs." Old Master Hua didn't say anything else since he had given her what he wanted to give. He took Su Qingsang downstairs. Su Qingsang followed behind him, still holding the box in her hand. She was still thinking about telling Jinyao about it when he came back. Suddenly, she saw a person sitting in the living room who shouldn't be there. Chapter 225. Su Qingsang stood still at the top of the stairs. Old Master Hua also saw Su Ruoli, who had already stood up. "Grandpa Hua. The girl from the Su family is here?" Old Master Hua waved his hand and gestured for her to sit down. "Sit down. Don't be so polite." "Thank you, Grandpa Hua." Old Master Hua sat down on the sofa. When he saw Su Qingsang sitting there motionlessly, he reached out to her. "Qingsang, come and sit down." Su Qingsang touched her nose and finally walked to sit next to Old Master Hua. She had forgotten to put the box away, so she was still holding it in her hand. Lu Tongjia saw the box and couldn't help but look at Old Master Hua. "Dad." Lu Tongjia met Old Master Hua's eyes. Her voice was very soft, with a bit of unhappiness and unwillingness. "That bracelet should be Mother's, right? Old Master Hua nodded. Yes, it was left by your mother. Why is it in her hand? Su Qingsang was a little confused when she realized that the topic had shifted to her. Was there anything special about the bracelet on her wrist? Ji Niao married her. Who else could it be given to if not her? But Lu Tongjia's face was quite ugly. How can he give it to her? How is she worthy of it? Every word she said was very soft, but there was a strong sense of dissatisfaction in it. I don't see why she is not worthy. Old Master Hua looked protective. She is Ji Niao's wife now. Why is she not worthy? This is for the eldest granddaughter-in-law. Back then, Lu Tongjia paused and looked at Old Master Hua again. Anyway, she is not worthy. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. The box in her hand became a little hot. She didn't know whether she should take it or not. Su Ruoli just sat there and didn't say a word. Tongjia, I know what you are thinking. You just don't think she is worthy of Ji Niao. But now they are married. And I think she is worthy. Very worthy. Dad. Lu Tongjia's face was really ugly now. There are guests here. What are you talking about? Nothing. The girl from the Su family is also here, so I can show my attitude. Su Ruoli, you are very good, very good. However, your fate with the Hua family is still a little lacking. I believe you are a good boy. I also believe that you will have a bright future. So, let's forget about our previous agreement. Su Ruoli didn't expect Old Master Hua to be so direct. Her face was pale and she almost couldn't sit still. Grandpa Hua, I'm old, and I don't have many years left to live. I don't care about life and death anymore. I only wish for you juniors to be happy. It's the same for everyone. Su Qingsang couldn't help but give Old Master Hua a look of admiration. Humans. Living with a clear mind was also a skill. However, there were many people who lived their lives in obscurity. There were very few people like Old Master Hua who were as open-minded as him. Grandpa Hua. Su Ruoli finally found her voice. What are you talking about? I'm here today to visit Auntie. After all, I haven't seen Auntie Hua for a long time. Auntie Hua always takes care of me. Yes. I know you are a good boy. I haven't seen you for a long time. You can leave after dinner. Thank you, Grandpa Hua. Chapter 226. At noon, Hua Jinniao came back. It was a long way from the company. She didn't expect him to come back for dinner. Seeing the teasing look in Old Master Hua's eyes, Su Qingsang almost couldn't sit still. Su Ruoli's eyes lit up when she saw Hua Jinniao, but they soon dimmed down. Lu Tongjia was upset after being scolded by Old Master Hua, so she didn't say anything. Old Master Hua was very happy that his grandson came back to eat with him. When the dishes were served, she asked Hua Jinniao to sit next to her. As soon as Hua Jinniao sat down, they began to show off their affection again. It wasn't as exaggerated as yesterday, but from time to time, he would pick up some food and ladle some soup for Su Qingsang. Lu Tongjia had seen it the day before. Today, she only felt a headache. She didn't have any other expression on her face. It was the first time that Su Ruoli had seen Hua Jinniao like this. She was surprised and refreshed. She didn't expect Hua Jinniao to have such a side to him. In her memory, Hua Jinniao was quite casual in front of his childhood friends, but he was very serious outside. Other than in front of Old Master Hua, he had never shown this side of him, not even in front of his parents. Was this man really Hua Jinniao? Su Ruoli looked at the couple in front of her and felt suffocated. He couldn't taste the food at all. Old Master Hua talked to Hua Jinniao from time to time. He knew what the other two were thinking, but he didn't have time to care. Lu Tongjia didn't have much of an appetite. She took a few bites and went upstairs. When she left, she looked at Su Ruoli apologetically but did not say anything. Old Master Huan needed to take a nap after lunch. Before going upstairs, he glanced at Hua Jinyao and said, Jinyao, you can send the girl from the Su family home later. All right. Grandpa. Hua Jinyao stood there motionlessly, his expression calm. Su Qingsang smiled at him and gestured for him to see the guest out. She wasn't jealous? Hua Jinyao narrowed his eyes. He was obviously dissatisfied, but he still went to see Su Ruoli off. How could Su Ruoli not see the look between the two of them? Feeling a little suffocated, she smiled and said to Hua Jinyao, Jinyao, thank you. Not at all. Hua Jinyao and Su Ruoli got in the car. In fact, the Su family was not far from the Hua family. After getting in the car, Su Ruoli fastened her seatbelt and kept her eyes on Hua Jinyao. Jinyao, there were a lot of people yesterday. There were some things that were not convenient to say. Su Ruoli seemed to hesitate. Thinking of what had just happened, she still felt that it was a bit glaring. Are you serious? We've already gotten our marriage certificate. Do you think I'm serious? Hua Jinyao started the car with an unruly smile on his face. Su Ruoli felt bitter. Is that so? Why her? It's fate. Su Ruoli didn't believe it. Hua Jinyao was not a person who believed in fate. But, if not for her, then the two of us, could we, she hesitated, but she didn't know that Hua Jinyao was much more determined than she thought. There are no ifs. Ruoli, you know very well that it's impossible for us to be together. Jinyao, Su Ruoli thought for a moment and said, do you care about the engagement between the Su family and the Hua family? You don't want to be restrained, you don't want. Chapter 227. Hua Jinyao's rejection was straightforward and merciless. Su Ruoli's face was pale. Looking at the road ahead, she felt that no matter how bright the sun was, she could not feel the slightest warmth. Actually, sometimes I also think that it would be good if we didn't have that engagement back then. Su Ruoli looked forward and said, if there is no engagement, then, I don't have that engagement anymore. Hua Jinyao stopped the car in front of the Su family's house. Ruoli, I'm married. The engagement between the Su family and the Hua family was no longer valid. In fact, you know very well that the engagement is no longer valid. Yes. Su Ruoli nodded in her heart. It's a long time ago. She knew that it didn't count anymore, but she still couldn't let it go. To put it bluntly, she was just stupid. Unfastening her seatbelt, Su Ruoli hoped that she would lose gracefully. He looked at Hua Jinyao again with a complicated look in his eyes. Thank you. Jinyao. After getting out of the car, Su Ruoli walked slowly inside. After taking a few steps, he turned back and stood in front of the car again. Jinyao. There are some things that I haven't let go of, and I know you haven't either. But if I can let it go, I think you can try to let it go too. Hua Jinyao didn't speak. His lips were pressed into a straight line. He was in a completely different state from before. Su Ruoli bit her lip. She knew she had said something wrong, but she couldn't take it back. Jinyao, no matter what, I still wish you the best. I hope you can live a happy life. She said this very sincerely, but Hua Jinyao didn't look at her. Thank you, I will. His voice was a little cold. Before Su Ruoli could move, he had already started the car and left. Halfway to the office, Hua Yao suddenly made a turn and went back to the Hua residence. Su Qingsang was sitting on the sofa, having a video chat with Shi Mengwan. After lunch, everyone went to take a nap. The servants usually didn't hang around the main residence. Su Qingsang was alone on the first floor. She was texting Shi Mengwan about what she had seen and heard in the past 2 days. Seeing Hua Jinyao come in, she was stunned for a moment. She hurriedly hung up the video call and watched Hua Jinyao approach her. Don't you need to go to work? Yes. Hua Jinyao sat down beside her. I have a meeting in the afternoon. I still have to meet a client tonight. Then why are you? I came to see you. By the way, I'll explain it to you. I'm afraid you'll be jealous. What do I have to be jealous of? Su Qingsang didn't feel well yesterday. However, she had seen Hua Jinyao's performance in the past 2 days. Since Hua Jinyao didn't care about Su Ruoli at all, why should she be jealous of her? Honey. Hua Jinyao was not happy to hear that at all. What you said really hurts me. Don't tell me you're not unhappy at all. Why should I be unhappy? Someone is coveting your husband. Hua Jinyao pulled Ye's body over and let her lean into his arms. Why aren't you worried? If she covets you, will you leave with her? Of course not. If she likes you, you'll abandon me to be with her? How is this possible? If that's the case, why should I be jealous? Why should I be anxious? Su Qingsang said matter-of-factly. However, Hua Jinyao couldn't bring himself to laugh. Chapter 228. Of course. Su Qingsang nodded, and the expression on her face was quite contented. Not all women are as easy to talk to as me. Hua Jinyao stared at Su Qingsang's face for a while. Instead of saying that she was easy to talk to and tolerant, it would be more appropriate to say that she didn't care about him, right? Are you really not curious? Yes, but only a little. If he wanted to say it, he could say it. If he didn't want to say it, she didn't mind. Therefore, Su Qingsang shook her head quite frankly. I'm not curious. The corners of Hua Jinyao's mouth twitched. He stared at Su Qingsang's face for a while and said, should I thank my wife for her generosity now? Isn't it? Hua Jinyao took a deep look at Su Qingsang, his face pale. He stood up and said, I'm going to work. Go. Su Qingsang wanted to continue chatting with Shi Mengwan. Seeing that she didn't even try to persuade him to stay, Hua Jinyao felt a toothache. He took a few steps forward and suddenly stood in front of Su Qingsang again. Su Qingsang had just swiped the screen with her fingertips. She was surprised to see Hua Jinyao like that. What happened? Do you want to accompany me to work? Accompany him to work? Su Qingsang was confused. Why would I go to your workplace? No matter what, you are the future lady boss of the company. Of course you want to go to the company with me? Otherwise, the next time you come to the company to look for me, they won't recognize you. Right? It didn't matter. If she wasn't jealous or didn't care, it only meant that her taste wasn't good. Or perhaps they didn't understand how good his market was. He should bring her to the company and let her have a good look. In a place that she couldn't see, her husband had a lot of people thinking about him. However, Su Qingsang had no such thoughts. Why would I go to your company to look for you? I won't go. Just treat it as accompanying me. Hua Jinyao sat down beside her. Think about it. I still have work to do, and you'll be bored staying at home alone. Why don't you accompany me to work? What he said was right, but wouldn't that be bad? How could that be? Let's go. Seeing the anticipation on his face, Su Qingsang stood up and said, okay, I'll go upstairs and change. No need to change, let's go. But, don't worry, my wife is beautiful no matter how you look at her. I guarantee it won't be wrong. Hua Jinyao was quite famous in the company because of his family background and good looks. There was no need to say anything more. Not to mention within the Tianyu group, even in the entire Rome city, there weren't many people who could compare to him. Then there was Hua Jinyao's means. As soon as he graduated from university, he took over the position of president of Tianyu Group. Back then, Hua Mingguang was still very young, and many people in the company were quite unconvinced. However, with old master Hua's support, Hua Jinyao shouldered the burden. Not only that, but Hua Jinyao's achievements over the years were obvious to all. Tianyu Group's business was already very big. Hua Jinyao had been leading Tianyu all these years and had rarely failed. Even if there were occasional twists and turns, he would be able to turn the situation around in the end and bring more benefits to the group. Everyone in Rome City said that Hua Jinmiao was a business genius and a promising young man. Who in Rome City didn't know that such a fierce and domineering CEO was actually indifferent to women? Chapter 229. Yang Wenchang was the first one among them to know that Hua Jinmiao was married. However, when he suddenly saw the boss and the lady boss coming over, he was also shocked. President Hua. From the moment Su Qingsang entered the gate of Tianyu Company, the people who greeted her all the way looked as if they had seen a ghost. She didn't know the employees, but now even Yang Wenchang was like this. She couldn't help but look at Hua Jinmiao. Could it be that this person was too fierce or too harsh in the company, so he was disliked by others? After Hua Jinmiao finished talking to Yang Wenchang, he turned around and found Su Qingsang in a daze. What's wrong? Nothing. Su Qingsang turned to look at him. Hua Jinmiao, are you very, what? Are they fierce? Su Qingsang still asked, if they're not fierce, why do they all look like they've seen a ghost? What are you thinking about? Hua Jinmiao flicked her forehead. Why are you so fierce if I'm not doing anything? How would I know? Shouldn't he ask himself? It's the first time they've seen me bring a woman to the company. Hua Jinmiao squeezed her hand. They won't be surprised if you come a few more times. Why would I come to your company so often? Su Qingsang touched her forehead. She didn't use much force, but it still hurt a little. To keep me company. You're not a child. How could a grown man need company? That was enough. You can also treat me like a child. I don't mind. Hua Jinmiao said it very seriously. Su Qingsang was so shocked that she almost choked. You? A child? It was the first time she had seen such a big child. Just as she was about to make a few jokes, she suddenly thought of something. She immediately stood up and looked at Hua Jinmiao with a vigilant face. You're not going back to Lin City this time, are you? What's wrong? Just tell me yes or no. Her eyes were a little nervous. Hua Jinmiao couldn't help but tease her when he saw her like this. Yes. There are a lot of things to do in the company recently. I don't think it'll be that fast. Didn't you see Qing Xianyin yesterday? His family runs a hospital. Wouldn't it be good to ask him to arrange a hospital for you? I don't want to. Su Qingsang rejected him without hesitation. She looked upset. I'm not going to resign. You promised me. He said he just came to Rome City for a few days. Even if he really wanted to come, he should let her settle the matter first, right? As for the resignation, as well as the work at hand. She originally wanted to get a master's degree in medicine from the medical university in Lin City. If she came to Rome City, she would definitely have to reapply for a new school. She also had more things to prepare for. Su Qingsang needed him to give her some time to deal with these things. If I didn't say that, would you have come back with me? Hua Jinmiao took her hand and joked even more, now that you're back, I have the final say. It won't be that easy for you to leave. He said half jokingly, half seriously. Why are you like this? Su Qingsang stood up abruptly. She couldn't help but look anxious. How can you do this? How could you lie to me? How did I lie to you? Hua Jinmiao didn't expect to be so angry. For a moment, he forgot that he was joking. Why didn't you lie to me? After Su Qingsang came, things happened one after another. Chapter 230. She was being too serious. Hua Jinmiao looked at her and didn't understand why she was so angry. Honey, what's wrong? Su Qingsang wanted to lose her temper, but she didn't know what to say when she met Hua Jinmiao's gaze. He had a point. He was from Rome City. He had been with her in Lin City for so long. He looked at the Hua family and then at her small apartment. He must have felt wronged a long time ago. She understood, but she still felt a little depressed. Honey? Hua Jinmiao realized that something was wrong. Are you angry? Don't be angry. If you don't want to stay, we'll continue to go back to Lin City. You can stay wherever you want, okay? Hua Jinmiao. That wasn't the point at all. She was actually a little anxious, a little. Su Qingsang looked at him with a rare look of helplessness in her eyes. I want to go back to Lin City. Then let's go back. Wait for me to deal with the things at hand, then, I want to go back by myself. Su Qingsang looked at him. Hua Jinmiao, I want to go back by myself. Honey? Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm not angry. I just want to go back to Lin City. Then wait for me. I'll go back with you. No. That wasn't the point at all. Hua Jinmiao, if you have things to do, you can do them. I'm a grown-up. I can take care of myself. Honey? President Hua. Someone knocked on the office door. His secretary in Rome City poked her head in and said, the people from Zhongqing Company have arrived. They're in the reception room. Okay, I'll go right away. Hua Jinmiao looked at Su Qingsang and squeezed her hand again. Okay, I have something to do here. Stay here for a while and rest for a while. Wait for me to come back. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. Hua Jinmiao kissed her on the cheek. Be good and wait for me to come back. He picked up 2 documents and hurried out. Su Qingsang was the only one left in the office. Soon, 2 young women came in. They seemed to be Hua Jinmiao's secretaries. They brought in some drinks, snacks. The other one was holding a tablet and a laptop. Both of their attitudes were quite proper, and their expressions were also very respectful. They said that this was Hua Jinmiao's order, so they put down the things and left. Su Qingsang looked at the pile of things in front of her. Not only did the annoyance in her heart not disappear, it even increased. Before coming to Rome City, she had thought that Hua Jinmiao was just a good-looking man without a bright future. She had thought that he was just an ordinary employee with some ability and a bright future. He had never even mentioned his parents. She had once thought that his parents might have passed away or something. She was an illegitimate daughter, and his family was ordinary. She felt that this was very good, very equal. However, when she came to Rome City, she found out that Hua Jinmiao had such a powerful family background and such an identity. It was true that old Master Hua loved her. However, Lu Tongjia, Hua Jinmiao's childhood friends, and Su Ruoli, who used to be engaged to him, there were so many pairs of eyes around him, so many people, and they all seemed to be conveying the same message. She didn't deserve Hua Jinmiao. Actually, she didn't need anyone to remind her of this. She knew this better than anyone else. When she saw the Hua family, she entered the Hua family. When she saw the environment that Hua Jinmiao usually lived in, she was stunned. Chapter 231. She seemed to be more and more aware of the distance and gap between her and Hua Jinmiao. Frankly speaking, she was not a person who easily felt inferior. In the past, she had never felt that she was unworthy of Hua Jinmiao. Although she was indeed an illegitimate daughter who didn't even know who her mother was. In the past, she had never thought of marrying into a rich family. Finding a man with a similar family background and spending the rest of her life with him didn't matter whether she was worthy or not. However, she didn't expect that the man she randomly married would have such an identity. Looking at the pile of things in front of her, Su Qingsang couldn't sit still. She stood up and went outside. No one dared to stop her, so she went straight outside. Lin City, Su Mansion. Su Peijian hung up the phone, her expression still very ugly. After thinking about it, she felt unwilling and made a few more calls. After hanging up, she sat on the sofa and sulked. Coincidentally, Li Qianxue came down from upstairs. Seeing Su Peijian like this, she didn't rush to go out but walked to her and sat down. What's wrong? Who made you angry? Who else? In the whole of Lin City, who would be so blind to make her angry? Still thinking about Yanba? Mom. How could Su Peijian not think about him? They had been engaged for so many years, but in the end, the engagement was broken off just like that. What kind of person did Xiao Yanba think she was? You were on the phone just now? Yes. Speaking of this, Su Peijian was even angrier. Mom, do you know? I heard later that Xiao Yanba has another person he likes. Really? Li Qianxue sat up straight. How did you know? It's because of Su Qingsang. She said it. Hearing Su Qingsang's name, Li Qianxue began to feel uncomfortable. Why is it related to her again? What's going on? Su Peijian told the story and then talked about what she had done in the past few days. Su Qingsang wouldn't say something like that for no reason. She must know something. But I asked someone to investigate. Yanba has been living a very disciplined life recently. I haven't seen him particularly close to any woman. Are you sure? Yes. The person Su Peijian hired was famous in the industry. Mom, do you think Su Qingsang didn't know and said that on purpose? It's possible. Li Qianxue was actually thinking of something else. If you have investigated and found that Xiao Yanba doesn't have a woman, or that he is closer to another woman, then is it possible that that woman is Su Qingsang? Su Peijian's eyes widened. Mom, what did you say? I say, is it possible that the woman is Su Qingsang herself? Li Qianxue was an experienced person, so there was nothing she didn't understand. Otherwise, how could Su Qingsang know about something that no one else knows, or even can't find out? Now that he thought about it, it seemed to be the case. Su Peijian's expression was extremely ugly. How is that possible? Who was Su Qingsang? She was just an illegitimate daughter. Not to mention that she was already married. How could Yan Bo like her? Impossible. Don't worry. Maybe it's just my guess. Li Qianxue patted her daughter's hand and said, You, don't be too anxious. I think the fox will show its tail sooner or later. Don't you agree? Chapter 232. You're always so impatient. Although Li Qianxue said that, there was not a trace of anger on her face. He looked at his daughter's hands. Each of them was smooth, tender, and well-maintained. This was the daughter she had raised in a pampered manner. She couldn't bear to see her suffer any grievances. Yes or no, there's no conclusion yet. There's no point in being so anxious. When the truth comes out and it's proven that it's her, we'll think of a way. Think of what? Silly daughter. Li Qianxue patted Su Peijian on the shoulder and said, Sometimes, you don't have to do it yourself to deal with someone. It's not worth dirtying your hands. Mom. Su Peijian immediately understood what Li Qianxue meant. She nodded heavily and said, Thank you, Mom. I understand. The mother and daughter looked at each other and smiled. Li Qianxue seemed to be comforting her daughter, but in her heart, she began to have doubts. Her daughter was too young after all. Perhaps she should use the power of the Li family to find out if Su Qingsang had anything to do with Xiao Yanba breaking off the engagement. Su Qingsang, who was far away in Rong City, naturally didn't know that she had been suspected and targeted. Even if she knew, she couldn't care less. After all, she had just had a disagreement with Hua Jinyao that wasn't really an argument. Outside the office, it was very spacious. The assistant's office and secretary's office were very busy. Further ahead was the vice president's office, which was currently closed. Su Qingsang wasn't interested, and she didn't want to go in and take a look. Going straight ahead, there wasn't a pantry in front, but a washroom. Su Qingsang went into the bathroom and chose a cubicle. Just as he was about to come out, he heard footsteps. Fortunately, he paused in his action of opening the door. The footsteps drew nearer and nearer, and soon they were in. It sounded like the footsteps of 2 or 3 people. Emily, did you see the woman in the CEO's office today? No, I only saw his back. What's wrong? I heard it's Mrs. Hua. How is this possible? I didn't hear anything about President Hua getting married. I don't think so either. But I heard Assistant Yang call her that. Did you see Vivian bringing tea and drinks in just now? I saw them. They prepared a bunch of things. There were even snacks. TSK, the president really dotes on Mrs. Hua. I wonder which family Mrs. Hua is from. After all, ordinary people aren't good enough for our President Hua. That's right. Mrs. Hua must be from a wealthy family. If it's not the Tang family, then it's the Su family or the Qing family. Accompanied by the sound of flushing water, the chatter slowly died down. Then, the footsteps went far away and could no longer be heard. Su Qingsang leaned against the partition. She stared at an unknown spot and fell into deep thought. See, everyone thought that Hua Jinyao wasn't good enough for ordinary people. Now that she, an ordinary person, was already mated, what should she do? She found that she really hated this feeling. She touched the phone in her pocket and the wallet on the other side, then walked out of the bathroom and headed straight out. Su Qingsang didn't realize that she was unfamiliar with Rong City until she walked out of the Tianyu Group's building. However, after coming out, he realized that he had no sense of direction at all. Chapter 233. She rubbed her arms with both hands and turned her head back. She could go back like this, but she didn't want to. She took out her phone and found the nearest shopping mall. Su Qingsang went straight there. After walking for a few minutes, the shopping mall was right in front of her. Before Su Qingsang entered, she saw a person running out of the mall. That person ran very fast, and soon, another person followed behind him. The person behind him was a woman. At this time, she was chasing the man in front of her with some difficulty. Catch the thief. The woman was wearing high heels and her footsteps were very slow. She could only keep shouting, "That's a thief. Catch him." Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment. She watched the thief run in her direction, and he was getting closer and closer. Catch the thief. The woman behind her was still shouting. Su Qingsang didn't move at first, but when she saw that the thief was about to run in front of her, she stretched out her foot without thinking. The thief obviously didn't expect Su Qingsang to do this, and he was about to run over. Unexpectedly, he was tripped by Su Qingsang's foot, staggered twice, and fell forward. The thief fell to the ground, and the wallet he had been holding in his hand also flew out at this time. Su Qingsang quickly stepped forward and stepped on his back. The thief was anxious and was eager to get up. How could Su Qingsang give him a chance? She exerted force again. She was wearing a pair of leather boots today. This step was very solid. The thief struggled again. The woman who had been chasing behind him had already run over. She picked up the wallet on the ground, panting. After casually checking it, she seemed to be relieved when she found that it was her own wallet. She was about to thank Su Qingsang. On the other side, an equally enthusiastic crowd had already come over and subdued the thief. A group of people was going to send the thief to the police station, and there happened to be one nearby. Su Qingsang went with them as a witness. The woman thanked Su Qingsang, and the police thanked her again. She was a little embarrassed. She had learned a few self-defense skills before. But they were all showy and useless. She was lucky today, but she was praised by these people to the point that she thought she was a chivalrous woman. He had to catch a thief, record a statement, and be pulled by that woman to thank her. It took Su Qingsang quite a while to convince the woman to give her a reward and treat her to a meal. After all the work was done, Su Qingsang walked out of the police station and finally felt cold again. She didn't want to buy any more clothes. He took out his phone to check the time. There were more than 30 missed calls. They were all from Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment, then realized that she had accidentally pressed the mute button. No wonder she didn't hear it. She called Hua Jinyao back. His voice sounded eager. Honey, where are you? Half an hour later, Hua Jinyao saw Su Qingsang in front of him again. Without saying a word, he hugged her. Where did you go? Do you know you scared me to death? I thought you went back to Lin City. It was okay to return to Lin City, but he was afraid. Chapter 234. How is that possible? Su Qingsang tried to hide her fear for Hua Jinyao. I just got bored in there, so I wanted to come out for some fresh air. Come out for some fresh air? Why didn't you answer my call? Hua Jinyao almost called the police. Do you know how worried I was about you? Sorry, I accidentally muted my phone. It wasn't on purpose. It was really an accident. Looking at the calm look on her face, Hua Jinyao couldn't help but pinch her cheek. Don't do that again. Okay, I'm fine now, aren't I? She rushed to Tianyu as soon as she received Hua Jinyao's call. Hua Jinyao looked at her and restrained himself from pinching her face. He took her hand and led her into the building. I still have some work to do. Wait for me, and I'll go to dinner with you, okay? Okay. Next time you go out, you must tell me. You're not familiar with this place. I'll be worried about you, you know? Okay. Su Qingsang didn't argue with Hua Jinyao about these things. In fact, she just wanted to relax. Who knew that those things would happen? Wife. After entering the elevator, Hua Jinyao suddenly put his arms around her waist. Are you angry? Angry? Why would I be angry? Because of going back to Lin City. Hua Jinyao looked into her eyes. In fact, he wanted to know if she really didn't want to stay. I'm not angry. Su Qingsang really wasn't angry. She was just a little bored. You said you're not angry. Hua Jinyao pinched her cheek. Look at your face. Your whole face is showing me that I'm unhappy, I'm very unhappy, and you've made me angry. No way. Su Qingsang was amused by him. What nonsense are you talking about? No way. Look at your face. Hua Jinyao turned her face to look at the mirror wall. There was an amber mirror on the bright elevator wall. Su Qingsang looked at it and saw Hua Jinyao's face in the mirror. She turned around and looked at him. Hua Jinyao, you. When the elevator arrived, Hua Jinyao's secretary was standing at the door with a document in her hand. He signaled for her to go back to his office first. He signed the documents and made some arrangements before entering his office. Su Qingsang was reading the news on her tablet. Hua Jinyao didn't want to disturb her. After dealing with business, he had time to be alone. Time passed slowly. Hua Jinyao moved quickly. Shortly after nightfall, he disposed of the remaining papers. After that, he found that Su Qingsang's body was curled up on the sofa as if she was about to fall asleep. Hua Jinyao sat down on the sofa. As soon as his hand touched Su Qingsang's face, she woke up. Su Qingsang yawned, rubbed her cheek against his palm, and asked, Are you done? Done. Hua Jinyao supported her and gestured for her to sit up. Are you very sleepy? Nope. I'm not sleepy. He was just a little bored waiting. Can we go now? Yes. Hua Jinyao nodded and stood up to help Su Qingsang. However, she had been in the same position for too long. As soon as she stood up, her feet went numb and she sat back down. Her expression was a little strange. Hua Jinyao immediately guessed it. He put her coat on the sofa in her arms and picked her up. Chapter 235. Put me down. Su Qingsang was embarrassed. This was his company. What did he want to do? Can you walk? Are your feet numb? Yes. But, no buts. Hua Jinyao picked her up and walked to the door. When he passed by the door, he gestured for Su Qingsang to take his suit jacket. Su Qingsang couldn't push him away now. She was originally holding her own clothes, but now she was holding Hua Jinyao's clothes. The two of them left the office. Most people on this floor had already gotten off work. Hua Jinyao carried her to the elevator. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed, but seeing that no one was around, she relaxed a lot. However, when she looked at the scene of herself in Hua Jinyao's arms in the mirror wall, her face was still a little red. Put me down. There were cameras in the elevator. Wasn't he afraid that his image in the company would be ruined? No. You're my wife. What's wrong with me holding you? How could Hua Jinyao not know there were cameras? So what? He and Su Qingsang were a serious husband and wife. Besides, he could get someone to take out the video tomorrow. Thinking of this, he became a little bolder. He looked at Su Qingsang's red lips and kissed her. Not only do I want to hold you, but I also want to kiss you. Hua Jinyao. Wasn't he enough? Where did he think he was? Hua Jinyao liked to see her like this. She pouted her lips slightly, and her face was a little angry and a little coquettish. What's wrong with me? Huh? Tell me. As he spoke, he kissed her again. Su Qingsang's face became redder, and she felt more uncomfortable. Hua Jinyao, put me down. She called him by his full name again. Hua Jinyao had long noticed that when Su Qingsang called him, it was always Hua Jinyao. She didn't seem to have called him wife even once. Or Jinyao. Not in bed. He often used tricks on her. Hua Jinyao suddenly put his face next to Su Qingsang's cheek. He pressed his forehead against hers and looked into her eyes. The two of them breathed in the same breath, and the atmosphere was very intimate. How about you call me husband and I'll put you down? Su Qingsang looked at his enlarged face and the faint smile in his eyes. He looked down. Stop messing around. If you don't scream, I'll carry you all the way today. Anyway, she was light. He worked out all year round and had a good body. Carrying her was a piece of cake. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang bit her lip and looked at the elevator going lower and lower. Put me down, she said anxiously. You're calling me dear husband, aren't you? I'll put you down right away. What do you think? Su Qingsang's face was burning. She was too embarrassed to call him that. Don't mess around. Hua Jinyao clicked his tongue and said, it seems that you enjoy my embrace more. Since that's the case, just keep hugging it. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. It was okay to be in the elevator. The elevator was about to reach the underground parking lot. If someone saw it, the elevator arrived and the door was about to open. Hua Jinyao moved closer. Hurry up and call. Su Qingsang bit her lip and was about to say something when the door opened and someone happened to be standing outside. Su Qingsang was shocked. The voice that was about to come out stopped there. The person standing at the door was none other than Hui Yifan. He held the car key in his hand and seemed to be planning to go upstairs. Chapter 236. Hua Jinyao, who always suppressed him in the company's board of directors and was never polite to him in private meetings, was hugging his new wife intimately. The two of them seemed to be planning to do something amazing. Realizing this, Hui Yifan raised the corners of his mouth with a playful expression on his face. Big brother, you're in a good mood. Did you just work overtime? He emphasized the word overtime. The meaning was obvious. Hua Jinyao was quite calm. Even if Hui Yifan saw it, he didn't intend to let go of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. She gestured for him to let go of her several times, but he didn't move. She couldn't help but pat his back again. Hua Jinyao just looked at Hui Yifan as if he didn't see it. Yes. I just finished working overtime. I haven't been here for a few days, and there's been a lot of work in the company. Really? I thought that big brother had always handled the company with ease. Who knew that there would be times when you have to work overtime? Hui Yifan nodded, looking as if he understood and didn't need to explain. Of course it's easy for me to handle it. But aren't you already off work? What are you doing? I forgot something upstairs. I'm going to get it now. Hui Yifan spread his hands. I'm just an idler. I can't compare to you working overtime at this hour. It's also hard. When he said it was hard, he didn't forget to look at Su Qingsang in Hui Jinyao's arms meaningfully. Wasn't it hard? He didn't come to work for a while, and when he did, he brought his wife to the company. Only Hui Jinyao would be able to do something like this without separating public and private interests, wouldn't he? Su Qingsang chose to pretend to be dead in the face of the two of them arguing. At the same time, she didn't forget to signal Hui Jinyao to let her down. Hui Jinyao only looked at Hui Yifan as if he didn't see her movements. It's my duty. After all, my brother is too useless, so I have to work harder. Don't you think so? Hui Yifan's expression suddenly became ugly. In that case, I can only trouble you to work harder, brother. Of course. After saying that, Hui Jinyao carried Su Qingsang out. Su Qingsang tried several times, but Hui Jinyao didn't let go of her. She was so embarrassed that she buried her face in Hui Jinyao's chest. When Hui Jinyao put her in his car, she covered her face and found that it was burning. It's all your fault. She was almost too ashamed to see anyone now. What happened to me? Hui Jinyao went around to the other side to open the car door. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. Don't worry. He won't dare to say anything. Hui Jinyao. Was this something he was spouting nonsense? After all, she was Hui Yifan's sister-in-law. Now that he saw her like this, it's okay. Hui Jinyao suddenly felt that Su Qingsang's blushing face was really cute, and at the same time, he found it a little funny. Honey, you're a married couple that I've held a marriage certificate with. So what if I hug you? Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. Seeing her like this, Hui Jinyao couldn't help but lean over and kiss her on the cheek. Alright, let's go eat. Su Qingsang touched her forehead helplessly. Looking out of the window, she suddenly felt that Hui Jinyao becoming the president of Tianyu Group might really be a mistake by the old master. Otherwise, how could this happen? What are you thinking about? Hui Jinyao started the car. Because it was still the evening rush hour, the car was very slow, so he had time to chat with Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang shook her head, got rid of those speculations, and changed the subject. Chapter 237. She didn't just dislike him. Just now, she clearly hated him to the point of wanting to go against Hui Jinyao. She recalled that it was the same in the Hui family. She even had a vague feeling that in the entire Hui family, except for old Master Hui, no one else liked Hui Jinyao. Why was that? He was the eldest son, wasn't he? Wasn't that too strange? Su Qingsang sensed that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Hui Jinyao didn't say anything and just focused on driving. Su Qingsang looked at him and wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't want to ask anymore. It didn't feel good to be disliked by others, especially by one's own family. What do you want to eat tonight? There was a red light ahead. Hui Jinyao glanced at her. She thought for a moment and said, "Let's go home. You've been away for so long. Let's go home and have dinner with Grandpa. Don't always eat out." Hearing this, Hui Jinyao turned around and held her hand. Are you being filial for me? You don't like it? I like it. I like it very much. Hui Jinyao chuckled. In fact, Su Qingsang was a simple person. If others were good to her, she would be good to them. She didn't like the Hui family, but old Master Hui was good to her, so she thought about him. Okay. Let's go home. In fact, if it weren't for Lu Tongjia, he would have wanted to go home. He was just afraid that she wouldn't want to see them and feel uncomfortable. Hui Mingliang and Hui Mingmei usually didn't eat at the Hui family mansion. When they got home, only old Master Hua Mingguang, Lu Tongjia, Su Qingsang, and Hua Jinniao had dinner together. Old Master Hua was very happy to see his grandson back for dinner. He thought that his grandson wouldn't come back. Su Qingsang was happy to see her grandfather so happy, so she sat next to him. Hua Mingguang was a little surprised to see this scene in front of him. This daughter-in-law had some sense. She knew who in this family needed to be pleased the most. Su Qingsang was already hungry. After all, she had helped catch the thief in the afternoon. With Hua Jinniao around, they were able to enjoy the meal quite comfortably. Except for Lu Tongjia's occasional glances. However, Su Qingsang had already calmed down a lot. After all, for people who didn't like you, no matter how much you did, they didn't like you. After dinner, the group went to the living room. Old Master Hua asked someone to bring out a chessboard and played chess with Hua Jinniao. Su Qingsang sat next to Hua Jinniao and watched them play chess. She didn't know much about chess, but she barely knew the rules. She knew that Hua Jinniao was good at chess. She knew that he could beat old Master Li in chess. What she didn't expect was that Hua Jinniao could even defeat old Master Hua. Lu Tongjia felt suffocated as she watched the loving and harmonious scene between the grandfather and grandson. She stood up and was about to leave, but Hua Mingguang held her arm and asked her to sit down. Lu Tongjia glared at her husband. It was his business if he wanted to stay and watch. She didn't want to. She wanted to stand up again, but Hua Mingguang pressed her down again. At the same time, he picked up the remote control and turned on the TV. Su Qingsang was watching chess attentively. She suddenly heard the sound of the TV and glanced at the screen. After seeing it, she exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 238. Today, a Good Samaritan incident happened in our city. Because I was there, I have the first piece of information. Su Qingsang looked at the introduction below and realized that the woman was actually a host of the local TV station in Rong City. She didn't add fuel to the fire. Instead, she vividly described how Su Qingsang had saved the man's life. After saying that, her expression changed. Unfortunately, this warm-hearted young lady refused to accept my gratitude. She left after doing a good deed. I really want to see this beautiful and brave lady now. I really want to thank her. Su Qingsang almost wanted to laugh. No wonder this woman was so talkative at the police station. So she was a host? But, the mood changed again. The host smiled brightly and gently moved a finger. I know the name of my benefactor. Su Qingsang was shocked. Sure enough. Please see my beautiful and brave Miss Su Qingsang from the distant Lin City, or if there is a kind-hearted person who knows Miss Su Qingsang's whereabouts, please give me Miss Su's contact information or address. I want to visit her to thank her. Su Qingsang wasn't the only one staring at the screen. Everyone else was staring at the screen. After reading this part of the news, everyone turned to look at Su Qingsang. From Lin City, named Su Qingsang? Hua Jinniao narrowed his eyes and stopped playing chess. Honey, the person she was talking about isn't you, is it? Su Qingsang smiled a little awkwardly. Would you believe me if I said no? Honey. Hua Jinniao held her hand tightly. I didn't know you were so good at martial arts. Don't listen to that person. I don't have any martial arts skills. Su Qingsang held her forehead. I was just lucky today. You call that luck when you defeated the enemy in one move? Hua Jinniao didn't believe it at all. I said that woman was talking nonsense. How could she be so good? Su Qingsang looked at these people and explained what happened during the day in a low voice. What she said was completely different from what the host said. However, it didn't stop the Hua family from listening carefully. Especially old Master Hua. He had wanted to be a soldier before. But because he had to take care of his family's business, he wanted to support them in another way. Therefore, the person who joined the army that year was his brother, Hui Yangyuan. Later, because Hui Yangyuan was injured on the battlefield, he was transferred to a civilian position. Hearing Su Qingsang's courage and boldness, he was very happy. Good. Okay. He's a good boy. Grandpa. Su Qingsang blushed. It's really not a big deal. It's just a very, very small matter. It's already amazing enough that I helped when I saw injustice. Furthermore, he was able to remain calm and composed. All right. It's really rare. Old Master Hua looked at Hua Jinyao as he spoke. Jinyao, you've married a good wife. Of course. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulders. When Old Master Hua praised her, he also praised himself. I've always had good taste. Yes. Good. Old Master Hua was happy. Qingsang, don't be in a hurry to leave. Stay for a few more days. I'm glad you're here. I will. Chapter 239. Lu Tongjia's face darkened again. Hua Mingguang didn't say a word. When Old Master Hua felt tired and went upstairs, the two of them also went upstairs and left. Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't feel so comfortable when the elders were there. Especially when Lu Tongjia was there. Before she could completely relax, Hua Jinyao's body had completely leaned over. Honey, what are you doing? Although it was late, there were still servants in the Hua family who were still awake. Nothing. I just wanted to wake you up. Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and rested his chin on her shoulder. I suddenly realized that my wife is very good. Stop it. Really? Very, very good. Hua Jinyao added, then leaned over and kissed her on the neck. Honey, why do you think you're so likable? Stop messing around. If someone saw this, she would really die of embarrassment. I'm not messing around. I'm praising you, honey. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he simply picked up her body and put her on his lap. Honey, I discovered something. What? Just now, I met someone else and let you escape. You haven't called me husband yet. Su Qingsang blushed again, feeling very uncomfortable. She quickly moved away from Hua Jinyao's arms. It's getting late. I'm going to take a shower. Su Qingsang ran as fast as a little rabbit. Don't run. Hua Jinyao got up and chased her. Are you going to call me husband or not? Su Qingsang pretended not to hear him and ran faster and faster. Hua Jinyao quickly caught up with her. When Su Qingsang ran back to the room, there was nowhere to run. Hua Jinyao closed the door with an evil smile. Honey, you ran up here yourself. Don't blame me. All the exclamations were muffled by the heavy wooden door, and no one outside could hear anything. Another place in Rome City. It was a small courtyard with 2 entrances. It was very quiet inside, far away from the road. The TV was on, and an auntie brought the dishes to the table. Then, she called into the inner room. Sister Xiang, dinner is ready. Let's eat. The auntie was from Sichuan, and her Sichuan dialect hadn't changed. There was no response, only the sound of a chair being pulled. After a while, the person inside came out. She was a middle-aged woman in her 50s. Her gray hair was tied up at the back of her head. The wrinkles on his face were obvious, and there were even a few spots on his face. He sat down in front of the table. The auntie turned on the TV and sat down on the other side. The news was also playing on the TV. It was the same broadcast in the same city. Both of them watched this program. Sister Xiang was scooping soup for herself when she suddenly heard Su Qingsang's name. She suddenly put down the bowl and stared at the TV screen. The name, Su Qingsang, had appeared several times, but she seemed to have only heard it once in Lin City. In order to make sure that she didn't hear it wrong, she asked the auntie to replay the TV again. Soon, the news was broadcasted again. This time, Sister Xiang heard it clearly. Lin City, Su Qingsang. Surnamed Su, and with this name? That's right, it can't be wrong. It was her. It had to be her. She still remembered that when she was with that heartless man, they had a wonderful time. She said that she liked the name Qingsang. If she had a daughter in the future, she would call her Qingsang. If she had a son, she would call him Qinghe. Su Qingsang, Su Qingsang. Sister Xiang repeated the name twice in her heart. Chapter 240. Her mind was a little confused, but she was more excited. Countless thoughts kept surging through her mind. Until the auntie called her, "Sister Xiang, why don't you eat? The dishes are going to get cold." When she came back to her senses, Sister Xiang was looking at her with an inquisitive and a little worried gaze. She smiled at the auntie to show that she was fine. This smile stunned the auntie for a moment. She hadn't seen Sister Xiang smile for a long time. Sister Xiang's expression couldn't immediately calm down. She endured it, and the expression on her face slowly returned to normal. Sister Xiang. The auntie finally couldn't restrain her curiosity. "What do you think of today's dishes?" "Pretty good." "Sister Xiang, you haven't gone out these days. Do you want to go out today? The weather forecast says that it will be sunny these few days, and it will rain in a few days. It will snow in a few days." "Okay. I'll go out for a while." The auntie became more and more frightened. It seemed that Sister Xiang was really going to go out. She hurriedly said, "I'll get the car ready later." "Where are you going?" "I'll accompany you." "Look at you. It's too late now. You'll go out tomorrow." "That's right." The auntie smiled. She focused on eating again. However, she still felt that there was something wrong with Sister Xiang today. Sister Xiang glanced at the screen and thought that she must go out tomorrow. She wanted to find Su Qingsang. She wanted to tell her that she was her mother, and she wanted to tell her that she, Sister Xiang, suddenly stopped eating. She had just found out that Su Qingsang was in Rome City. The excitement of knowing that she was in the same city as her had faded away. She thought of something else. She had once promised that as long as Su Qingsang lived a good life, she would never acknowledge her in this life. She had promised that she would not acknowledge Su Qingsang. Since that was the case, why should she acknowledge her? Her heart sank bit by bit, and Sister Xiang's face returned to its usual gray color. The auntie watched Sister Xiang's expression change and didn't react at all. She had been with Sister Xiang for many years and had long known that Sister Xiang was like this. Gloomy, cold, serious, and not easy to get close to. Sister Xiang's eyes returned to the screen. The program had long been changed. She couldn't even hear that name anymore, let alone that person. Now, what was she going to do? After being pestered by Hua Jinyao for most of the night, Su Qingsang didn't even have the strength to fight back. His hands and feet were weak, and he was too lazy to even move his fingers. She glared at Hua Jinyao, then turned her back to him. She didn't want to look at him at all. Hua Jinyao shamelessly reached out to put his arms around her waist and put his chin on her neck. "Honey, are you angry? Who has the time to be angry with you?" Su Qingsang refused to admit it. She patted his hand and asked him to let go of her. However, such a simple action caused her arm to ache. His anger grew. "Let me go." "I won't. If you don't let go, I'm going to get angry. If I let him go, I'll be discouraged." Hua Jinyao nibbled on her neck as he spoke. "Honey, I can't sleep well without you in my arms." "Nonsense. So you haven't had a good night's sleep for the past 30 years? "Yes." Hua Jinyao said half-truthfully, "Before you married me, before you let me hold you to sleep, I had nightmares every day." Chapter 241. Hua Jinyao didn't speak. Su Qingsang suddenly turned to look at him. Did I get it right? Are you hiding something from me again? How could I? I'm lying in front of you now. How could I hide anything from you? As Hua Jinyao spoke, he put his arm around her waist and pulled her back into his arms. You better not. Su Qingsang didn't like being lied to. She didn't want Hua Jinyao to lie to her again in the future. Honey, I just suddenly realized that I seem to be too merciful. You're still so energetic. Why don't we do it again? No. Her waist was going to break if he did it again. Hua Jinyao, give me a little more. Don't do it again. There was a hint of pleading in her words. Hua Jinyao also knew that he had gone too far just now. He was just joking. All right. If you say no, I won't. Hua Jinyao lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Honey, go to sleep. Don't disturb me. I'll naturally fall asleep. As she spoke, she didn't forget to pull his hand away. Stay away from me. I really want to sleep. I just want to sleep. Do you hear me? She was really sleepy. Ever since she got together with Hua Jinyao, she felt that she didn't have enough sleep. However, this guy didn't know how to control himself at all. He did it again and again. He wouldn't let her go unless he squeezed out all her energy. He was really too bad. All right, I'll let you sleep. I swear, I promise I won't do anything stupid, okay? Su Qingsang yawned and reluctantly believed him. She was really sleepy. After closing her eyes for a while, she fell asleep. Hua Jinyao watched her fall asleep easily. He tightened his arms and held her in his arms. He fell asleep smelling the faint fragrance of her body. After the two of them had been together for the past few months, they had always been like this. However, he didn't know if what Su Qingsang had said before had some effect. That night, the nightmare that hadn't come for a long time came again. Those familiar scenes that were engraved in his bones replayed over and over again. Hua Jinyao tried his best to get rid of them, but in the end, he could only wake up panting. It was dark in front of him. He reached out his hand to turn on the light. The familiar environment allowed him to relax. The warmth at his side made him turn his face away. His eyes fell on Su Qingsang's face. Was that a guilty conscience? Does it count? Shaking his head to stop thinking about that, he put his arms around Su Qingsang's waist again and let her snuggle against him. Su Qingsang didn't wake up. She found a relatively comfortable position in his arms and fell asleep again. Her breathing was long and balanced, and her cheeks were flushed with a healthy and attractive red. He leaned over and kissed her on the cheek, his gaze gentle. Since he didn't intend to let her know about some things, then he would never let her know. Hugging her waist tightly, he pressed her body closer to his before falling asleep again. This time, the nightmare did not come. It was a dreamless sleep until dawn. Su Qingsang stayed in Rong City for a week. Over the past week, Hua Jinyao had been very busy and had a lot of things to do. She didn't stay idle either. She knew what Hua Jinyao was thinking. He wanted her to have a chance to come to Rong City. She had also seriously considered this matter. It was true that Qing Xinyan's family owned a hospital. They also owned 2 Class 3 Grade A hospitals, but they were both private. The fees weren't low, and there weren't many patients. Chapter 242. A doctor's skills had to be demonstrated in practice. It wouldn't be a good thing for her if she kept thinking about relaxing. After a few days of observation, she felt that Rong City First City Hospital was the best. Firstly, it was very close to Hua Jinyao's company. Secondly, the obstetrics and gynecology department was also very famous in the area. If she really had to come, Su Qingsang was more inclined to go to Rong City First City Hospital. She finished her observation, but she wasn't in a hurry to tell Hua Jinyao the result. Hua Jinyao spent a week dealing with some important business matters. He also told Old Master Hua that he would leave the next day. Although Old Master Hua was reluctant, it wasn't like his grandson wouldn't come back. What's more, Su Qingsang might come back with him. He repeatedly advised Su Qingsang to come to Rong City if possible. After all, Hua Jinmiao would only be busier in the future. He flew around all year round. If she was in Rong City, he could take care of her more. Su Qingsang really liked Old Master Hua. She was also slowly considering his proposal. However, she didn't say anything. She hoped that she could really come to Rong City and give Old Master Hua a surprise. It had rained a few days ago, and Rong City was a little colder. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinmiao were on the plane the next day. After thinking about it, she still went out in the afternoon. She wasn't close to the Su family, but she had a good relationship with the people in the department. And Mengwan. She wanted to pick out some gifts for them. Hua Jinmiao took the initiative to go out with her. He knew better than her what kinds of specialties there were in Rong City. Su Qingsang looked at her phone contacts and asked Hua Jinmiao for his opinion. What else do you think I can buy besides some food? Hua Jinmiao mentioned a few things, all of which were specialties of Rong City. Seeing Su Qingsang take a small notebook, he wanted to laugh. I told you, Wan Xianying's family has several factories. He specializes in these things. I asked him to send some over, but you said no. I don't want it. Su Qingsang glanced at him. I'm buying things for people, so of course I have to pay. If you ask him to send it over, will he ask you for money? He wouldn't dare. Hua Jinmiao chuckled. He wouldn't dare to accept it even if I gave it to him. That's right. Su Qingsang had met northerners before and knew that they were generous. But this was different. Don't worry about it. Just take me to that place. I'll buy it myself. Okay. I'll listen to you. He leaned over and squeezed her hand. Honey, I've listened to you during the day. Shouldn't you listen to me at night? Su Qingsang smiled and said, I've listened to you during the day. Stop messing around. Su Qingsang blushed. This guy couldn't think of anything else other than this every day. Can you focus on driving? Okay, I'll drive. Hua Jinmiao withdrew his hand. There was a turn right in front of him. He was about to turn the car over when a figure suddenly flashed out of the corner. Hua Jinmiao couldn't dodge in time, so he quickly braked. Fortunately, the speed of the car wasn't too fast. Otherwise, it would have hit someone. When the car stopped, Su Qingsang was startled. After Hua Jinmiao got out of the car, she got out as well. There was a middle-aged woman sitting in front of the car. She looked to be in her 50s, and her hair was half white. She was sitting on the ground in pain. Auntie, are you all right? Hua Jinmiao immediately went forward to help the man up. Su Qingsang quickly followed. She was a doctor and knew how to deal with external injuries. Chapter 243. Don't move her. I'll check for her. People at this age were most afraid of bumping into things. It would be bad if something happened to them. Su Qingsang squatted down and said softly to Xiang Kaiping, who was sitting on the ground, Auntie, I'm a doctor. Can you tell me where you hit yourself? Where does it hurt? Can you move your hands and feet? Xiang Kaiping looked at the young woman in front of her. Her face dazzled her for a moment. Really like. Perhaps not quite. But she did look like that person. She did not look like herself, but more like that person. She almost didn't need to ask anymore. Just by looking at this face, what else could she not understand? Auntie? Hua Jinmiao squatted down as well. At the same time, he took out his phone to call an ambulance. Su Qingsang reached out and waved her hand in front of Xiang Kaiping. Auntie, can you hear me? Auntie, you. Xiang Kaiping said, you, twice, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. Where does it hurt? Tell me. Su Qingsang was afraid that she would hit herself too hard. As for why he didn't say that he hit hard. She was sitting in the front seat, so she knew that Hua Jinyao's car didn't hit the woman. She was just startled by the sudden appearance of the car and fell. She called out a few times, but the auntie only had a pained expression on her face. She didn't say where she was hurt. Su Qingsang's expression suddenly changed. Was this old auntie here to blackmail her? She couldn't help but look at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao had already finished the call. Soon, the ambulance arrived. When he saw the worried look on Su Qingsang's face, he was confused. Qingsang, what's wrong? Qingsang? Yes, it's her. Xiang Caiping's eyes, which were already a little misty, widened again. It really was her. You. Xiang Caiping was so agitated that she blushed. His voice also became a little sluggish. All these years, other than the auntie who took care of her daily life, she basically didn't speak much. He couldn't find the words to organize his words. Seeing this, the suspicion on Su Qingsang's face was replaced by worry. Auntie, are you all right? Auntie? How could she call her aunt? I am. Xiang Caiping was about to reveal her identity when she felt a pain in her waist. Auntie, don't move. You might have accidentally twisted your waist. As Su Qingsang spoke, she pressed Xiang Caiping's body down to prevent her from getting up. Xiang Caiping wanted to say something, but when she saw Hua Jinyao standing there, she couldn't say anything. Hua Jinyao also thought that the woman who suddenly fell to the ground was a scammer. This kind of thing happened too often, especially to someone like him who drove a luxury car. However, even if it was a scam, he was not afraid. However, this woman didn't look like an ordinary scammer. She had been acting very well up until now, and she didn't ask for much compensation. Also, why did she keep staring at Su Qingsang? Do you think it's easier to talk to women? Auntie, bear with it for a while. I'll take a look at your wound and do some emergency treatment. Su Qingsang noticed that the woman had been staring at her. She seemed to be on guard, but it also seemed to be something else. She whispered in a very gentle voice, "Don't worry. I'm a doctor." Doctor? Her daughter was actually a doctor? The bitterness in Xiang Caiping's eyes deepened. All these years, she had never seen her daughter. I didn't even know she was a doctor. Good, very good. Chapter 244. Don't move in a hurry. Be careful of a second injury to your lumbar spine. Su Qingsang held her body down and didn't let her move. Xiang Caiping didn't move. She just looked at Su Qingsang as if she couldn't get enough of her. Su Qingsang examined her and didn't find any fractures or other serious injuries. It was probably just a sprain. She still suspected that this woman was trying to blackmail her, but she couldn't be sure now that the other party didn't have any further impulse. The ambulance arrived soon. Su Qingsang helped the doctor put Xiang Caiping into the car and told the doctor about her preliminary diagnosis. The doctor nodded to show that he understood. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were going to leave, but after thinking about it, they went to the hospital. After entering the hospital, Hua Jinyao was afraid that this woman was trying to blackmail her, so he asked someone to check her body from head to toe. Xiang Caiping was fine. Her palms were a little bruised and her waist was sprained. There were no other serious injuries. Hua Jinyao didn't see her as a blackmailer because the other party didn't say anything about compensation. Auntie, there's nothing serious. We've already paid for the hospitalization fees. You just need to stay here for a few more days. Hearing Su Qingsang's words, Xiang Caiping became anxious. You're not going to stay here to take care of me? Sure enough, this was really a blackmailer. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao looked at each other, and the same emotion flashed in their eyes. Auntie, your injury is not serious. Your injury isn't very serious. If you want someone to take care of you, I can hire a caregiver for you. I want you to take care of me. Xiang Kaiping held her hand and sounded a little anxious. I'm afraid that's not possible. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. Auntie, I'm not from Rome City. I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm sorry. But don't worry, I'll hire a good caregiver to take care of you. You're leaving? Xiang Kaiping was stunned. She had seen the news and naturally knew that Su Qingsang was from Lin City. She actually knew without looking. However, she didn't say anything, and she was leaving? Yes, Auntie. Su Qingsang's attitude was quite good. After all, she was also a doctor. I said, don't worry. I'll have someone take care of you until you recover. But Xiang Kaiping didn't know what else she could say. She couldn't say a word, but she felt that she had a lot to say. Hua Jinmiao frowned. He had seen too many people like this. They pretended to be pitiful to gain sympathy, but in the end, they wanted to extort money. Qingsang. Hua Jinmiao pulled Su Qingsang to his side, blocking most of her body. She looked at Xiang Kaiping, who was lying on the bed with a face full of secrets. Hello, Auntie. I was the one who drove just now. If you're looking for her, you've got the wrong person. Xiang Kaiping's lips moved. Hua Jinmiao continued, she's my wife. If you have any requests, just tell me. As for taking care of you, I'm sorry. My wife is inconvenienced. I can hire someone to take care of you. It was the first time that Xiang Kaiping had laid her eyes on Hua Jinmiao. She looked at him, then at Su Qingsang. Who would have thought that she was actually married? Yes, she was 25 years old this year, so it was normal for her to get married. Chapter 245. Auntie, just say it. It was just a sprained waist. He also wanted to see how much this woman could ask for. What do you want? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang again. I want her to take care of me for 2 days. Impossible. How could Hua Jinmiao let his wife take care of a stranger? How much money do you want? Just say it. Or what compensation do you want? Just say it. But she can't stay and take care of you for a few days. I don't want money. Xiang Kaiping didn't expect that one day she would be misunderstood as asking for money. She was anxious. I really don't want money. I don't want her to, Auntie. Su Qingsang knew that Hua Jinmiao wanted to protect her, but she really wasn't afraid. I'm really sorry. If you have other requests, we can satisfy them. I really can't stay. Her vacation ended tomorrow, and she would start working the day after tomorrow. She would go back tomorrow and rest for half a day. How about this? I'll help you hire a caregiver. Or, you can tell me your family's contact information, and I'll contact your family. Family? Xiang Kaiping smiled bitterly and looked at Su Qingsang. I have no family. Su Qingsang was speechless and turned to look at Hua Jinmiao. What should she do? Hua Jinmiao frowned, looked at her, and shook his head. He gestured for her to ignore him. Auntie, I understand how you feel. But we do have something to do. How about this, I'll ask someone to come over. Don't worry, we will never run away. We will definitely take responsibility. Hua Jinmiao's attitude was sincere. If it weren't for Su Qingsang's kindness, he would have called his assistant to deal with this matter. Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang and wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Her eyes were red. Hua Jinmiao didn't have the patience to watch this kind of sad drama. He squeezed Su Qingsang's hand and gestured for her to leave with him. Auntie, we'll leave first. Don't worry, we promise to take responsibility until the end. Qingsang. Let's go. If she didn't let Su Qingsang contact with that woman, who knew what she wanted? Xiang Kaiping was still struggling. She knew that she had wronged Su Qingsang, but she wasn't sure if Su Qingsang would accept her. She was even more afraid that Su Qingsang wouldn't believe her. She was also afraid that Su Qingsang would blame her for not taking care of her after believing her. By the time Xiang Kaiping realized what was going on, Hua Jinyao had already left with Su Qingsang. Hua Jinyao did not go back on his word. Yang Wencheng soon arrived. She was here to deal with this incident, which seemed to be a small matter in Hua Jinyao's opinion. Xiang Caiping's disappointment was obvious, but no matter how hard she asked, Yang Wencheng refused to reveal any more information about the two of them. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were not in the mood to shop because of what happened to Xiang Kaiping. Let's go. We'll go home after we buy some things. All right. Su Qingsang didn't refuse, but she still felt that something wasn't right. Hua Jinyao, did you notice that there was something strange about that auntie? Especially when he looked at her, it seemed like there were thousands of words in his eyes. It was the first time Su Qingsang had been looked at like that. That feeling was really subtle. Did I? Hua Jinyao thought so too, but his feeling was completely different from Su Qingsang. I think there's something wrong with her eyes. Why? Chapter 246. That's why I said it felt weird. Su Qingsang looked at herself and then at Hua Jinyao. The way she looked at me didn't look like she wanted to blackmail me. Instead, it looked like Su Qingsang couldn't put her finger on it, but she also felt that it was strange. She was dressed very normally this time. Even though Hua Jinyao had prepared many brands of clothes for her to hang in the closet, she was more used to wearing her own clothes. As for Hua Jinyao, he had to work these few days. Even if the brand of the suit he was wearing couldn't be seen, anyone with a bit of insight could tell that it was worth a lot of money from the handmade feeling. However, Xiang Kaiping kept clinging to her and did not even look at Hua Jinyao. Wasn't this too strange? There's another possibility. Hua Jinyao thought more than Su Qingsang. Is it possible that she thinks women are easier to talk to? Did she deliberately pester you because you're my wife? It wasn't impossible, but Su Qingsang still didn't think it was the right answer. Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. Let's go. Didn't you say you wanted to buy a gift? Okay. Su Qingsang nodded and left with Hua Jinyao. The next day, Su Qingsang got up early to practice Tai Chi with Old Master Hua. She had been accompanying Old Master Hua in the mornings for the past few days. It had only been a few days, so naturally, she hadn't learned much. Old Master Hua was very patient. He didn't expect Su Qingsang to learn at once. He just wanted someone to accompany him. Every morning, Su Qingsang would practice boxing with Old Master Hua, and Hua Jinyao would swim in the pool nearby. After a few days, Old Master Hua was more and more satisfied with Su Qingsang. The two of them got along very well, except for the other members of the Hua family. She was going to leave today, but Su Qingsang accompanied Old Master Hua to practice boxing as she did a few days ago. Are you tired? All right. Let's call it a day. Old Master Hua stopped and looked at Su Qingsang lovingly. Qingsang, are you going back to Lin City today? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded, and there was a hint of reluctance on her face. Grandpa, I will miss you. Remember to call more often. I will. Qingsang. Old Master Hua glanced at the swimming pool. Hua Jinyao was still swimming. He shouldn't be able to hear us, right? Jinyao, this child. He doesn't look 5 or 6 sometimes, but this boy he's not what you see. Old Master Hua was still thinking about what to say. Su Qingsang looked at Old Master Hua and waited for him to finish his words without blinking. Actually, it wasn't like this in the past. Because something had happened. Before Jinyao's mother. Dad. The sudden voice made Old Master Hua stop mid-sentence. He turned his head and saw that Lu Tongjia had arrived without him noticing. Tongjia. Old Master Hua didn't say anything. Lu Tongjia glanced at Su Qingsang. That look made Su Qingsang shrink her neck. Lu Tongjia didn't look at her anymore. She just looked at old Master Hua. It was his uncle on the phone. He's looking for you. Okay. Old Master Hua glanced at Su Qingsang and went back into the room to answer the phone. Chapter 247. Su Qingsang frowned slightly, but Lu Tongjia wasn't afraid that she would be unhappy. Ji Miao is my son. I know him very well. It was impossible for him to truly like a woman. Therefore, even if you have the title of the young mistress of the Hua family, you don't have to be complacent. Because it's hard to say how long you'll be able to occupy this position. Auntie, you misunderstood. The smile on Su Qingsang's face was faint. Ji Miao is your son, but I don't think you know him well. Also, you underestimated me. I'm not with Ji Miao because I want to be the young mistress of the Hua family. As for how long you said I can occupy it. The benevolent see benevolence, and the wise see wisdom. At least, I think I can keep it. Is that so? Let's just wait and see. Lu Tongjia's expression was unfriendly, and her tone became more firm. Don't worry, Auntie. I'll treat this as motivation. Su Qingsang smiled calmly. She wasn't moved by Lu Tongjia's words at all. Lu Tongjia didn't get the upper hand. Her face grew colder and colder. With a snort, he turned around and left. On the other side, Hua Jinmiao had already come out of the water. The weather was so cold, but he was not afraid. She only wrapped a bathrobe around her body and came over. He didn't see old Master Hua, only Lu Tongjia leaving. What did my mother say? Standing in front of Su Qingsang, Hua Jinmiao looked concerned. Nothing much. If she says anything, just ignore her. Hua Jinmiao knew that he was wet, so he didn't hug Su Qingsang. He just squeezed her hand. Got it. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinmiao. The concern in his eyes didn't seem to be fake, and his kindness towards her wasn't fake either. She didn't think that Hua Jinmiao's love for her was fake, nor did she think that Hua Jinmiao married her for any purpose. If she hadn't seen the power of the Hua family before, she would have been a little hesitant, but there was no need to do so now. What kind of family did the Hua family have? What kind of family did the Su family have? This was completely incomparable. Although she was curious about the reason why Hua Jinmiao married her, so what? She had always liked to look forward. No matter what the beginning was like, at least now, she felt good. That was enough. After dinner, the Hua family's chauffeur sent them to the airport. Lu Tongjia wasn't there. She didn't plan to send her son off, and Hua Jinmiao wouldn't ask her to. In fact, Su Qingsang was also curious about why the relationship between Hua Jinmiao and Lu Tongjia was so tense. She was just curious, but she had no intention of asking. Hua Jinmiao would say it when he wanted to. The plane landed at the airport in Lin City. The people arranged by Hua Jinmiao had already come to pick them up. Su Qingsang heaved a sigh of relief when she got home. No matter how luxurious the Hua family was, she still felt that her own place was the best. It was already early winter, and the temperature in Lin City had dropped. Su Qingsang lay on the bed and watched Hua Jinmiao carry the clothes into the walk-in closet. She turned over and looked at him. Hua Jinmiao. Just now, Hua Jinmiao brought in 2 suitcases. As for the things she bought, they were all in the living room, waiting for Su Qingsang to give them away tomorrow. Is it unfair for you to live in such a small house? Hua Jinmiao stopped cleaning, walked to the bed, and sat down. What? Do you want to move? Of course not. No matter how small it was still her own nest. I just feel wronged for you. Young Master Hua. Chapter 248. Isn't it? Su Qingsang said half-jokingly, look at my room. It's not even as big as your cloakroom. She was lying on the bed with her hair cascading down her face. There was a hint of gentleness in her elegance. My house isn't even as big as your living room. Think about it, Hua Xiao, you've always lived in a big house, and now you're living in mine. Can't I feel wronged on your behalf? You feel bad for me, don't you? Hua Jinyao's eyes darkened, and his hand tickled her waist a few times. Su Qingsang shrunk her body and laughed. Don't come. Are you going to tell me or not? Hua Jinyao kept scratching her. Are you going to feel sorry for me? No need. No. Su Qingsang laughed so hard that she couldn't even breathe. She kept begging for mercy. Hua Jinyao withdrew his hand. Her hair was messy. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were misty. Seeing her like this made his throat tighten. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. I still want to punish you. What should I do? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang blushed even more. She stopped laughing because she was embarrassed. I'm going to punish you a little more so that you'll remember it. Don't talk nonsense next time, don't you think? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang tried to avoid him. Stop it. It's daytime. It's better during the day. Hua Jinyao grabbed her waist. This time, he wasn't trying to tickle her. Soon, the voices in the room changed, and so did the atmosphere. When Su Qingsang entered the hospital, she was holding a large box in her hands. She entered the department and handed out the specialties she brought back from Rome City to everyone. She had been wronged previously and had asked for leave. Everyone in the department thought that she was putting on a show and throwing a tantrum. As soon as Su Qingsang came back, she openly told everyone that she had gone on a honeymoon. After giving out these gifts, no one would say that the lass was deliberately putting on a show. After that, Su Qingsang went to the hospital administration and gave Deputy Director Yang and Director Lin a copy. Although they didn't help much last time, they still spoke up for her. The last one was naturally for Zhua Hongchen. However, he went to perform surgery. Su Qingsang left the things on his desk and left. Back in the office, Su Qingsang threw herself back into her busy work. After staying here for a long time, she still liked the environment here. Therefore, she would not easily consider changing places and working in Rome City. He had just returned to work, so he wasn't particularly busy. When it was time to get off work, basically no one came to the emergency department. She packed up all the files and was about to shut down and get off work. Someone knocked on the door. He looked up and saw Su Peijian. She stood at the door expressionlessly and glanced at Su Qingsang's office with a flash of disgust in her eyes. What's up? Su Peijian withdrew her gaze, entered the room, and closed the door. He stopped in front of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang raised her head to look at her. Miss Su, are you feeling unwell? She was in the gynecology department. It was either pregnancy or gynecology. What nonsense are you talking about? Su Peijian's face turned green. She glared at Su Qingsang, her face full of displeasure. Then what is it? She couldn't be blamed for overthinking, she was in the hospital. Chapter 249. Seeing that Su Qingsang didn't speak, Su Peijian took a step forward. What? Can't tell? Do you think I won't know if you don't tell me? Su Qingsang had a headache. She had forgotten about it after staying in Rome City for a week. I really don't know. You don't know? Su Peijian didn't believe it at all. Su Qingsang, if you want to hold back and laugh at me, you won't get what you want. Sister, you think too much. Su Qingsang rarely called Su Peijian sister. Every time she called her sister that, it meant that she was really helpless. I don't have to lie to you. I really don't know. You really don't know, or you really don't dare to say it? Su Peijian took a step forward and stood in front of Su Qingsang. She tried her best to control her expression, but some anger could still be seen on her face. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I don't know? Su Qingsang, that woman is you. Su Qingsang was startled by his sudden cold tone, but she quickly reacted after a few seconds. Sister. I really don't know. What's more, if the person Xiao Yanba likes is me, why would he wait until we're engaged to talk about it? It's not realistic at all. She said it very seriously, so seriously that she believed it herself. Su Peijian looked at her deeply, knowing that Su Qingsang's words were not unreasonable. She nodded her head heavily. Okay, Su Qingsang, since you said it has nothing to do with you, then I will believe you this time, but only this time. If I find out that the person in Yanba's heart is you, or that you are deliberately hiding something, then don't blame me for being rude. She wasn't a bad person, and she didn't want to deal with an illegitimate daughter like Su Qingsang. But if she really offended her, she would definitely not be polite. After throwing this warning, Su Peijian turned and left, leaving Su Qingsang rubbing her eyebrows helplessly. What she did just now shouldn't be considered a lie, right? In Rome City, Su Qingsang had not only bought gifts for the people in her department, but also for the Su family. But after Su Qingsang's trouble, she didn't want to come to her. If Su Peijian and Li Qianxue decided that she was the reason why Su Peijian couldn't get engaged to Qiu Yanba, she would be in even more trouble. When she got home, Su Qingsang called a courier to pack her things and send them to the Su family. As for whether Su Qinghui would be dissatisfied or angry, it was none of her business. In any case, she had done her part. At the same time, there was a gift for Shi Mengwan. After thinking about it, he called Shi Mengwan and asked her to meet him. Shi Mengwan had been very busy these few days, except for the few orders she had received. She also participated in a very famous wedding dress design competition in the domestic industry. She attached great importance to this competition, so much so that she had been drawing day and night, but she was always not satisfied with it, so she tore it up. When she received Su Qingsang's call, she remembered that she hadn't seen her for a long time. The two of them arranged a place to meet and have a meal together. Not long after Shi Mengwan sat down, she remembered to remind Su Qingsang of something. Your sister came to the wedding dress shop to look for me twice. She kept asking me if I knew who the woman who made Xiao Yanba change his mind was. I've already passed the buck. Be careful, I'm afraid she'll cause you trouble. Chapter 250. It's okay. Su Qingsang knew that her friend cared about her. She already came to me. But I said I didn't know, and she couldn't do anything to me. That's true. Shi Mengwan thought of the Su family and began to feel uncomfortable. But you'd better stay away from them. I don't think any of them are good people. Don't be like that. They just don't like me. It's not a bad thing. Pfft, Shi Mengwan sneered. That's because you have a good temper. If it were me, I would have turned the world upside down. All right, I know you're doing this for my own good. Thank you. If you really want to thank me, today's meal is on you. No problem. Su Qingsang answered readily. Shi Mengwan slapped her forehead hard. Look at me. I've been drawing so much that I've lost my mind. Your family has such a powerful background. You don't need money now. I didn't say anything. It's his business that he's rich. It's not my money. Don't provoke me. Shi Mengwan clutched her chest and looked hurt. You just randomly got a man to marry, and you managed to get such a high-quality man. I'm going to be jealous of you. Su Qingsang's eyes softened when she thought of Hu Jinyao. Well, she was indeed lucky. I'm lucky. There's no way out. Shi Mengwan leaned on the table with a lifeless look. Have you ever considered the feelings of a single dog like me when you're showing off your love? All right. Stop acting. Su Qingsang took out the gift and pushed it in front of Shi Mengwan. Here, make up for your hurt heart. That's more like it. Shi Mengwan took the gift with a miserly look on her face, which made Su Qingsang smile again. With such a good friend in Lin City, she really didn't want to leave for Rong City. So she'd better go to Rong City first. Rong City. Sister Xiang, your back is completely healed? You're discharged already? The aunt had taken care of Xiang Kaiping in the hospital for a few days. She was fine, but she was still a little worried. I'm fine. Xiang Kaiping shook her head. She touched the back of her waist. It was still a little painful, but it was no big deal. Sister Xiang, Mr. Yang left a lot of money. He said it was compensation. Xiang Kaiping frowned. The Mr. Yang the auntie was referring to was Yang Wenchang. Apart from showing concern on the first day he came to the hospital. For the rest of the time, he hired a caregiver to take care of Xiang Kaiping every day. Today, when he heard that Xiang Kaiping had been discharged from the hospital, he came again to deliver a check. Xiang Kaiping didn't ask for it, because the aunt had been taking care of her for the past few days. Yang Wenchang thought that the lady worked for Xiang Kaiping and gave her the check. The woman handed the check to Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping looked at the check with disgust in her eyes. He took it and tore it into pieces without a second thought. The auntie's mouth was wide open. One had to know that this was 100,000 yuan. She had sprained her waist, and the other party had paid 100,000 yuan for the medical expenses. The auntie felt that it was a lot. Xiang Kaiping did not explain further. She thought about the decision she had made in the past few days. I am very grateful to you for taking care of me all these years. However, I want to go to Lin City. Sister Xiang, are you going to Lin City? The auntie's surname was Chen. She had taken care of Xiang Kaiping for a few years. This was the first time she heard her say that she wanted to leave Rong City, and go to such a far place. Yes. I want to go to Rong City. Chapter 251. Su Qingsang hung up the phone with a faint smile on her face. Hua Jinyao saw it from the side. He turned over and pressed her under his body. Why are you so happy? Just now when he went to take a shower, he was still on the phone. Well, he actually wanted to ask her who she was chatting with for so long. Nothing. Su Qingsang shook her head. The wedding dress designed by Mengwan entered the finals. It was Shi Mengwan again. The smile on Hua Jinyao's face faded a little. You really care about her. He had picked the best present for Shi Mengwan. As soon as he came back, he went to Shi Mengwan's place to give her a present. For this, he had even neglected her. Later, when Shi Mengwan participated in the competition, she drew day and night. She was even more attentive than when she participated in the competition. From time to time, she would send some soup and water to her, saying that it was to nourish her body. She had never given him one before. This was too biased. Mengwan is my good friend. Of course I care about her. Moreover, although Shi Mengwan had parents, she lived alone outside. Then why don't I see you paying more attention to me? As Hua Jinyao spoke, he kissed her on the cheek again. There was some dissatisfaction in his eyes. You don't even care about me so much. You're talking nonsense again. Su Qingsang didn't want to admit it, but thinking about it carefully, she seemed to have neglected him a lot recently. Over the past few days, she had been in the hospital during the day and had to rush a thesis at night. This was the disadvantage of being a doctor. From time to time, you would have to take exams and write papers. No matter how professional you were, these were still necessary. He used the remaining time to accompany Shi Mengwan. She had really neglected Hua Jinyao. Alright, what do you want me to do? She reflected on the fact that she had been back for more than a week and realized that she had not been a good wife. Su Qingsang thought that maybe she could satisfy some of his small requirements. Listen to me tonight. Hua Jinyao's first request made Su Qingsang blushed. Was this a request? Which night did she not listen to him? Hua Jinyao also realized that this request didn't count, so he made another request. Our company has recently negotiated a cooperation project. Almost all the reputable companies in Lin City have participated in some of the cooperation. So the company decided to hold a banquet next week. At that time, you can attend as the hostess. Attend a banquet? Su Qingsang seemed to be in a dilemma. Does the Su family also include the Su family? The Li family? You have enemies? Of course. The Su family wasn't very friendly to Su Qingsang. However, he couldn't deny the strength of these few families. After all, to be able to take root in Lin City for so many years, it was impossible not to have strength. It was a collaboration. Hello, 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 hello. Can I not go? She hadn't met Su Peijian for the past few days. However, Su Qinghui had specially called her last time when he delivered the things to her. On the one hand, he said that she was impolite. She actually sent a gift by express delivery. On the one hand, he wanted to ask her who Qiu Yanba liked. It was fine if they didn't bump into each other, but what if they did bump into each other at the banquet? If Qiu Yanba made any moves, no. Hua Jinyao squeezed her little hand. I want to introduce you to everyone. I want to let them know that you're my wife. She's the wife of the president of Tianyu Group. Su Qingsang looked at the focus in his eyes. He introduced her to his family, then to his friends, and now to his business partner. She suddenly understood his intentions. After thinking for a while, she nodded her head lightly. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.